Welcome to the Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Amish Earther, Moon Harvest, Naughty Thumbnails, Mitch Kennedy, Original D-Rose, Rod, The Name's Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, JMails24, Unimento, M, Iron26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Goldie McKiernan, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Built, More Books, Canna Bear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B Styles, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Nealand, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Henrik 86, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, Tina Baker, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
I noticed that's mostly when you're around. When you're not around, everybody's like, "Where's Nathan?"
You mean it gets quieter when I'm not around?
It can, because sometimes you step away and everybody's like, "Where's Nathan?" Right? So
Yeah,
you're
normally
like,
just after the live stream ends, I need to get another drink and clear away all the cups and things, you know, just get organised for the next hour or two that's just going to be sat in the same position.
I gotcha.
It's not the kind of thing you want to announce. I'm just going to be away from my mic. No, I don't like saying that. I just want to slope away. Hopefully the conversation will continue. And if it doesn't, you're smart enough to realise I'm stepped away for a second. In the live show I will, because obviously it's critically important that people know. You know, there's no subtle 5-second pause that you can get away with like in the after show. Whereas if it's a live show, I'll say, oh, somebody's at my door, and obviously the wife and kids are out at a class or something, so I have to answer it. For us in the delivery, I want it, you know. So I'll say, oh, somebody's at the door.
Yep.
But again, I hate doing that. I hate when that happens.
Yeah, I hear you. And it still goes to show you that, like when you're around, like you coordinate the show really well. That everybody's keen to participate and chat and so forth and so on, and you like guide it really well too, right? And I guess like people even look up to that, right? So when they notice, wait a second, Nathan's not participating enough, they right away notice something is off, right?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, obviously, hosting the show for so many years, you know how to keep it going and keep it flowing.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking exactly that too. Eh? You've been doing this for a while.
Plus, I trained as an actor, right, at college. So that sort of gig, that's my gig, right? This is my gig.
Right. Well, you're making use of what you've been trained with, then, right? So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
You know, you didn't hand out the link, just so you know.
Oh, I did. I put it in Quantum Erasers channel.
Right.
Whoops. That'd be why it's so quiet.
Yeah.
There we go. Done.
Yep.
Turn the computer up just a tiny little tiny bit. That's been stable for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I was scanning through the Skype channel and I'm like, that looks like a game. Seeing your pictures, and I'm like, oh, that is a game. And we were just, well, it was something that was to stress test your computer, right?
It wasn't a game. Intel XTU. It's just a stress testing piece of software.
Yeah.
But it's just intriguing because the first thing I did when I got the computer and it was noisy as hell before I did anything, was test it. Like, how does this perform? Let's have a look. So immediately I ran a stress test, or a benchmark, I should say, like a CPU benchmark, and just wrote down, or took a photo of the score. And now here we are, 12 months later, after endless headaches and hassle and heartache and aggravation. It's all working. I'm like, oh, I remember doing a benchmark on it. I'll do another benchmark on it and see what it actually comes out to now finished. Which is normally like a 2-week later thing. You know, you get the computer, you start meddling with it, you learn how it works. A couple of weeks later, you finish tuning it and testing it, and then you benchmark it. Right? That's the idea. For me, it was 12 months later. Nevertheless, 1% improvement for about 50 or 60% less power use. That's pretty impressive. So through getting too hot, it was having to turn itself down so much that I can more than halve the power and keep it within a reasonable temperature and have it actually perform better in total silence.
Yeah. And I also noticed the benchmarker is called Heaven's Benchmark. And then your computer, it says Beast 88 something, whatever.
That's just what I labeled the computer, because that's what the computer's called. So the case is called, well, the system itself, because that's got all the cooling components in it. The case itself is part of the cooling. It's called the Beast. That's why it says that. But yeah, so
Right.
it's the Beast, and its score in the Heaven benchmark. That's right.
Yeah, it says Uni Engine Heaven Benchmark 4.0.
It's just a quick and dirty piece of software that replicates a game running. So it's relatively taxing on the GPU, but like I say, it's very similar to like the type of load a game would put on. So you can just run it in a loop over and over and over again instead of having to sit in front of a game playing it. So it's just a quick and dirty way of testing.
Yeah.
How you doing, Nathan?
All right.
Not me. My car don't start.
What, your Lincoln? Just
Tell you,
just a dead battery?
it's reading 11.6 now, so that means the battery, right?
What's it supposed to be? 12?
Yeah, they said, as I Googled it, it said it's not going to crank the engine anything under 12. 12.2 might not even crank the engine.
Yeah, you want 14 ideally.
Yeah. So, but I noticed a couple of things, like the emergency brake went on just out of nowhere, so I have to bring it back anyway.
No, that might be an automatic thing, i.e. the e-brake isn't. It's a little switch, right? It's not a handle.
Yeah, but like, remember I told you when I come to a stop, the engine shuts off, then as soon as I take off the brake, it goes again?
Yeah, that's supposed to happen. That's start-stop technology. That's supposed to happen.
Right. But when I'm on a hill, the freaking emergency brake goes on.
Yeah, that's supposed to happen.
When I let off the gas, the emergency brake goes on, then everything locks up on me. Yesterday, the steering wheel, it said that the steering percentage is shut down. So
Yeah,
how to freaking physically turn the wheel into a lot?
These are all directly linked to having not enough electrical. You've got a shit battery. That's all that is.
Okay, so hopefully that's going to work out.
Yeah.
Let's see.
How old is the car?
Up
How old is it?
It's a 2018 model.
You're right. So it might be on the original battery. So yeah, just change the battery. All will be solved.
The thing is, up the hood, Nathan, you could eat off this engine. It's so clean. Like, oh my goodness, I never had an engine look this clean.
No, it isn't. That's beautification panels that are clean. Pull off the beautification panels and look at the engine itself, and it won't be.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. But even though I popped the hood, everything, always looked dirty. This looks clean. But why would they sell a car that the batteries, basically, wouldn't you want all those things in line?
No. You sell it as is. If it turns over at the point of sale, then it turns over. The fact that the battery's on its way out is irrelevant. There might be 100 things on their way out, so long as it functions at the point of sale.
Yeah, they give you 90. You got like a 90-day thing. I'm going to bring it in just to see if there's any like wiring issue going on with that.
Unlikely.
'cause
It's such a modern
Hey, Neil.
car. It sounds so unlikely. I would say it's more likely just you've got a duff battery. That's it.
Hey, Neil, what you do, what I've learned through experience, what make of the car is it?
are you a qualified mechanic to be answering these questions?
Just, no, seriously, what is the make of the car?
It's a 2018 Buick.
All right, take it to a Buick dealer, pay $40, $50 for an inspection of the status of what it is. Explain to them what it is that you're doing. They have a specific inspection where they're going to check everything for that 90 days warranty for the AC, everything, to let you know exactly what to expect, what's wrong, whether it's a bearing, anything. And then they list that down on their invoice by a certified mechanic. You go back to that used car dealer and you tell them this is what's wrong, so that they don't tell you it's just the battery, and then it ends up being something more complicated in the electrical functionality of the vehicle.
That's actually a good idea. I'm going to do that.
That's what I've always done. Anytime I bought a used car for Joe's Autos or, some place like that.
This is CarMax.
Now, if you buy it off the dealer, usually they're not going to do that to you because they're going to, they want to respect their car,
Even better.
But if you get it off
CarMax is a massive like outfit cross nation. So yeah, take it to your Buick dealer. I think that's a really good idea. I would do exactly that.
Yeah, I'm going to do that because when they moved the car from Georgia to Alabama for me to pick it up, I couldn't pick it up until they did their inspection on it. I don't know what that is. They could be bullshitting me for all I know. So I'm going to bring it to the dealer. That's a good idea.
A battery is supposed to read 11.7 volts.
Say again.
Say
again.
The battery is supposed to read like 13.2 volts, not 11.7.
Yeah, that's what I said.
11.6 now.
Yeah. Yeah, it needs to be well over 12 and, ideally closer to 14.
So would I be able to get it jumped?
Yeah. Once you've got it
It
running,
depends.
it doesn't matter that the battery's a bit weak once it's running, but you might have electrical faults. But the things you've described, like the hills start not disengaging. So a car with an electronic e-brake, like a little button instead of a handle, they can be fussy if the battery's weak. But the fact that it comes on a hill when the engine turns off, that's supposed to happen. Because normally the engine's going to be holding it on the clutch if you're in an auto. The engine's off, right? So the e-brake comes on automatically. That's normal. But not turning off when the engine turns back over, obviously there's an error there, but that's probably an electrical fault. It is an electrical fault.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. So just, that's just me. It's Neil. I could pull a car right out of the lot without a mile on it. And a week or two later, that friggin' thing won't start.
No, I don't know about not start, but every car you ever buy ever will have issues. I've had in my lifetime only 2 or 3 brand new cars, maybe 4, and each and every one of them has had issues straight out the gate. That's just how it is. Even expensive cars. So, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll pick up a car and immediately it'll be trouble-free for 12 months. That's just not the case. The second Repmobile, the S5, was back in the garage within a day with an issue. And then within a week, and then within a month. And then it was all the little niggles with new cars, which they do have, get resolved.
Well, that's encouraging.
Cars.
I feel like I'm on an island sometimes, like it only happens to me.
Some fantasy people have about new cars. It's like, if they didn't have problems, why would they come with a warranty?
No, I agree. I always said you could drive a car right out of the lot and it could have a problem. There's no guarantee, instead of dealing with a used car, you get a new car and nothing's going to be wrong. On straight, something could be wrong.
Right. Hence, you end up with people reviewing cars based on how good they are. Well, obviously, the reviewer is going to be reviewing a new one. You can still get plenty of car reviews that say this is junk. especially in America.
Well, I've learned to, if you're going to buy a used car, go to a dealership like a Buick that may have a Honda Accord traded in. Go to those type of reputable dealers versus Joe's Auto Deals or Mickey's Motors, because those are the scam artists. I've learned that, and we have learned that as military guys coming out of boot camp, getting out first station that requires a vehicle to be able to get to and fro, and these dealerships are stacked, waiting for new recruits to come out with, 24%, interest rates and all this, just because they have to get a car to get to work, because that's a mandate as being a military person. So, I've learned through my experience, I've only done it twice. I bought into those secondhand, and now I buy only from the dealership. Like I bought my Honda Accord, rather my Edge from a Honda dealer, my Ford Edge from a Honda dealer. Nothing was wrong with it. Didn't start acting up until later, like 4 years later. It was like something with the fuel tank, fuel tank sensor or something like that.
Yeah, someone's bought that Honda, kept it for 3 years. As soon as it's out of warranty, they've taken it to the next dealer that they fancy a different brand for, in your case Ford or vice versa, and then they just trade it in. Well, what typically happens with those cars is they get sent to auction, which is where I would buy a car from, or have bought many cars from, which is you go to the auction
Exactly.
and they don't want a Honda on a Ford forecourt. Well, the easiest thing to do is offload them all to the auction. So you get all sorts of cars that have just been traded in and they just go to the auction. Well, that is where the dealer buys his cars. The guy that you're saying that's a scammer, he'll get his cars from the auction. And he'll buy all of the stuff that's been traded into the Ford and Toyota and Nissan dealers that aren't Ford, Toyotas or Nissans. They just go to the auction, you pick one up, and might be an absolute shitbox. It's a real gamble, but it's cheap.
You're not allowed to go to the auction in America unless you're a dealer.
Oh, are you not? I mean, I had to register, so you have to
Nathan's
register as a
100% right.
purchaser.
You know what happened, Refraction, for me? I knew a dealer. He took me to an auction that was dealers only. He got me my Mazda 6 back in the day. Now I got it for $5,900. Guess what the jacket value was?
10
it
grand.
was still
10 grand.
Still 13.5.
Yeah, that's what the auction's all about. I mean, I didn't know you couldn't go as a member of the public. You can here. You have to register in advance, and you can even pull them off. I remember doing it with my dad when he used to buy cars back when fax machines were all that was available to get information. And the night before the auction, you go to the fax, and there's a special code that you could put into the fax machine, and it would draw data off like a server, like a fax server database, and it would just print off 50 sheets, like 50 A4 size sheets, one after the next, of all the cars that were going through the lot. And you just go through it and just have a look what was going to go through.
Yeah, America has always been about protecting the middleman in transactions.
Yeah, don't I know it? Setting up for shows out there in Vegas or New York or wherever it was, and the union guys would be having a go at us. You can't unload that. Why not? Well, there's a man to do that. You want us to get the union on you? What you're saying? We've arrived. There's our place of business. Here's our stuff, but we can't move our stuff to our place of business, which is right there. No, you cannot. You will wait. And in 5 hours' time, the union designated person for moving shit will be here to move your shit. Oh, right. I see.
Right. Well, those same unions are also the ones that ended child slavery, labor, whatever you want to call it. 8-hour work days, things like that.
Your mic's terrible, by the way. I don't know what's wrong with it. Hello, Adam.
Hey, everyone.
Hello, Brian.
Afternoon, guys.
Hey, Adam.
How you doing? Good morning, good afternoon.
And I wasn't simply
Neil.
Brian. You're my man.
Well, that was...
Well, thanks, Neil, because I thought you were never going to like me again after I told you to shut up that one day, which I would have deserved. Neil, how come you don't well, not you personally, but how come you don't buy Ford Crown Vics and that? Because there's no end of parts for them. They're used so much by the police force over there and by the taxi services. I mean,
You
they're
know
just
why?
tanks.
There's
They
two
just keep
reasons
going.
why. Right, I
talking about Ford?
would be with you, Brian. If I was out there, that is exactly what I would buy, because you could just keep replacing the bits that fall off it. But it's an old American car now, so it's an old American car. But I know what you mean. Crown Vics are cheap.
Listen, I wanted
Go
to
on.
get into a Ford. They wouldn't let me get in one. I wanted to get into a Ford Explorer, an Expedition. I needed something with bucket seats because I have monsters.
That's what I got. That's what I got, a Ford Explorer. And I want Expedition, actually. But Ford Explorer, I can't complain. I got, how many miles? 187,000.
You wanted a Tundra.
And
Can I tell you
they,
something?
What you actually
they want to
wanted
buy it from me, bro.
was a
They
I
wanna
Toyota
buy-
never had a
Tundra.
problem with Ford. Never.
You wanted a Tundra.
I had a Ford Escape that
I'm never gonna get
lasted
it
me until the cops took it from me.
You wanted a
Did that
Toyota
thing
Tundra.
come
I'm never
out?
going to get it in. Bloody hell, 5th attempt. You wanted a Toyota Tundra. You ended up with a Ford Explorer.
Yeah, that checks out too. Listen, Nathan, Toyotas are not easy to get into in America. You could have one. I looked at one. It was a flatbed, right? It was about 15 years old, 190,000 miles on it, and they still wanted 10 grand.
That's nuts.
Well, if I was in the US, as I said, I would buy a Ford Crown Vic because they're just a beast of a car and there's loads of parts there for them. But I wouldn't even mind buying an ex-taxi because you know that had to be used. I don't mind if something has high mileage because I know it worked. Especially if it was something
Did you say a Crown Victoria?
Yes.
Crown Vic, yeah.
Those are old 5.0 cars, boy.
Yeah, old.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Old.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, old cars are easy. They might be old, but especially if they've been used for a service, then like a governmental service or a taxi, you know they work then, and you know they were constantly having to be serviced and different things like that, as opposed to belonging to some guy who just drove it anywhere and didn't bother putting oil in it 10 times. You know, this kind of thing.
When we were in the neighborhood, when we were in the hood, and you seen that car, all you heard was "fail, fail, fail." That means ugly car or, something suspicious. 5.0 cops. That's all they drove around with in the 80s. Crown Victorians.
Hey, speaking of 5.0, I drive a midnight blue, like it's a giant blue SUV, Ford Explorer with black, chalky, flat rim. Every time I get near somebody, they tap their brakes. They see me coming, you can see them tap their brakes.
Yeah,
when they
you're
ride.
5.0.
Yeah, they ride on my blind side just to see what I'm gonna do. And then they start once they see who I'm in the car, then they drive past me.
Hey, I just put
You
a
see, the
video in
Jewish
the
people-
chat.
Listen, the Jewish people, they're allowed to have lights for some reason. And they got freaking cars that look exactly like cop cars. But their ambulance service,
With
they
lights?
will, you could be working with somebody. Like I was carrying a carpet with this guy on my shoulder. That alarm went off. He just dropped his end, jumped in his car, and left. So you think they're cops, but they're not. They're Jews.
Jews?
And they're protecting their neighborhood.
Jews? What do you mean? You mean Jewish
people with the Hasidics, they have lights just like cops. You would think it's a cop, but it's not. They're Jews and they're allowed to have them because it's like ambulance service, private security service. Those freaking guys will just drop what they're doing, no matter who they're with, and fly out of there.
I mean, there's really specific people in the UK that are allowed to have lights on their car. Really specific. And if you get caught with lights and you haven't got one of those positions, that would be police, ambulance, fire department, or services for the road, then you're not supposed to have lights. End of story.
No, don't apply to the Jews.
You got to understand, in the United States, Yiddish, Ashkenazi, Khazarian, so-called Jews get away with a lot of these things when it comes to protecting their neighborhoods, their communities, their synagogues, they get a lot of leniency. Look, did you hear about the bust? There was a major bust when they were selling N95s in Brooklyn. Remember that,
I
Neil?
don't know what an M95 is.
N95.
What's an M95?
The N95 scam.
What's
That's
that?
the mask. That was the mask, the famous mask that everybody had. They were advised to wear for the protection of the so-called thing.
PV, whatever it's called, the special material. That's okay.
Yeah. So there was a big sting. They were selling them out the truck for these astronomical prices. Like the way people were stealing toilet paper and doing the same thing, putting people under, situation.
Hey,
where
you guys
they would
want to review the video?
capitalize on
Yes, Gene.
Yeah, it's about time we get onto flat Earth. I agree.
Can someone grab it
radio
off Discord and stick it Master B? I'm just going to nip off for a second and get some.
It's already in the main
Well,
chat.
excuse me.
I hear you,
Excuse
John.
me.
Okay, thank you. I've been trying to get that in for a minute.
Go on anyway, dear Rose. Let's hear the rest of your story.
I need the link in Master B.
Hey, man, great talk, Brian, yesterday, man. Me and you and Adam, that was fun.
Yeah, that was a bit of fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
you wouldn't let me freaking get in. I had to leave, you piece of shits.
sorry, Neil. I asked you to come back in to use
It's in the main chat link.
That was Neil.
Neil,
Pieces
they
of
did come
shit.
to the Neil. They did come to the conclusion that Italians are now, by BBC order, allowed to say the N-word.
What, niggas? I always been saying niggas.
Well, that was awkward.
Whoa,
I'm gonna go make some coffee.
N-bomb alert. N-bomb
Have you
alert.
really, Neil?
Super awkward.
Have you really,
Yo,
Neil?
that's my favorite part. Hold on, that's my favorite part in the jerk with
I know.
Steve Martin.
It sounds
Hold
like
on.
the word. It's
Have you really,
not
Neil, with the ERS?
Remember that at the end in that movie, The Jerk?
Hey, Neil. Have you really,
What?
Neil, with the ERS?
No.
Always?
I with
Okay,
the
come on,
AAG.
man. Okay.
I put
Well,
it with the
I mean,
Z,
that's-
baby. I'm allowed. I'm half Sicilian.
See, that's what I was saying. That's what I was gonna step on too. I was saying, as far as that whole BBC thing, they tell half story, but there's even like discrimination between Italians in certain areas because the Sicilians are disrespected because of the Moorish blood mix. You know what I'm saying? And
Hold
they
on.
embrace.
Hold on a second. And I need to ask Adam this because my sister-in-law come to the conclusion that Italians are racist. I said, well, I know a guy that has a place in Italy, and I'm going to ask the Adam Meekin. She said, well, he's not black. How would he know? But I'm sure you have friends. Did you stumble across any racism where if they see somebody of color, they act with such disdain?
China.
I mean, there've been some bad stories in Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying? Like, you remember the old story about the boy that was chased across the street in Bedford. What was it? What was it?
Hold on a second. That girl brought that on. She brought
I
two
know.
of them to a party.
you know how
He
to-
was caught doing. Listen, D, if I went into your neighborhood or
No,
in the hood
I'm not,
and I was under mischief, I got ran out of there. That's just how it was in
I
them days.
know, but you know how the media.
Man, don't really care about
That's
these
what the
good
media
stories.
But you see what the media does with it?
Yeah, that's
They
the media's
run with it.
job. It caused
Then you got
problems.
Al Sharpton's stupid ass out there instigating. You know what I'm saying? That's just how. And then you got Do the Right Thing with the movies like that. That's another social engineering, culture conforming mentality.
Oh yeah, MTV is probably the worst thing that's ever happened to the what we consider the black community because it separated
Yep.
them even
I
further
mean, BET.
from everyone else.
And you
Yeah, it
know
was
that
horrible.
pizzerias in the hood were never like that, man. It's
Exactly.
stupid. That's their
Always had
income.
we were family, yo. We were family. Everybody knew about each other by the first name. You know what I'm saying? Nobody. Matter of fact, if somebody started some shit, somebody from the hood be like, "Yo, don't come up in here with that bullshit."
How come they don't show you the pizzerias where even in the hood where the guys that have no money, where the pizzeria guy just gives them the pizza?
Because
Right.
they don't want to. They don't
They
want
don't
to
show how they
project.
go into the, how they know the families personally and take care of them on the side without embarrassing them. They don't show that because that would cause unity and not dissension.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that were done that, like Freeway Rick Ross, right? The dude, like we're supposed to believe that this black guy without a college education figured out the chemical formula for crack cocaine because he had so much cocaine laying around, he was experimenting with it until he discovered crack. Like that's what they expect us to believe. It may be easy to make it, but it surely wasn't easy to discover how to make it.
Anyway, can we change the
And
subject? No,
It's kind of an insult.
much as it's fun to discuss the discovery of crack cocaine, not an ideal subject.
Not at all.
All right, so let's get into flat Earth. The argument's over. There is no argument. Earth is flat.
Yeah, even they use it as
Bring on
flat.
the
So
cocaine.
I had a back and forth with Rachie in Flatsoids chat.
Do tell.
How did
Tell
that
us
go?
more.
The two people spoke at once. Say again, Brian.
How did that go, Nathan?
Not very well. She just doesn't understand the arguments.
That's not you
what
can do
doesn't
then,
she
is it?
understand?
No, there's not a great deal you can do when you lay the argument out, and you know. I stepped in and she was arguing with somebody about the Black Swan, and she was basically putting back the baller argument of refraction. So intentionally, I led her onto a discussion point that would involve a straight line. She's like, how does being refracted mean you can't have a tangent? And obviously just pointing out, well, tangents need to be straight wasn't enough for her. So I took her into an argument where she had to claim a tangent to a GP. I'm like, where are you going to get your tangent from, and how's the GP out in space? Again, she then appealed that you can have an area of equal elevation on a globe. I'm like, that's the antithesis of a globe. So for whatever reason, she's latching onto claims that you can have a flat Earth on a globe as a rebuttal, or refraction in the case of the Black Swan. You're like, okay, that puts her in the same category, as unfortunate as it is to say, as the idiot ballers that have taken 3 years to understand this. Like, if you're sat on the fence, then
the question, Nathan, isn't it? I went on flat sides a bit last night, and with regards to Rachie, I don't know, but I'm asking myself the question: is she a shill or is she stupid? Because I can only see those two options now.
She's stupid.
Well, how do you have a tangent to
Can she
a
be a stupid
non-geometric location?
one at a time, please. Go ahead, Neil.
No, go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Neil. I was just going to say, how do you have a tangent to a non-geometric location? You
Yeah, I
can't
laid
have a
that out for her.
tangent to
Yeah.
an optical.
Absolutely. I laid that out for her, and she didn't get it, and braced against it after long periods of no chat. Me saying, do you get it now? It's really quite simple. And then she'd come back with another objection that was a rinse and repeat baller objection. Easy to overcome and contradictory in terms of straight lines versus bent ones. You know, embarrassingly easy to overcome with all the chat. I don't know if you were there while I was talking to her or not, Adam, but all of the chat going.
That was right there.
Right, so you saw D-Rose, the whole chat are going, obviously tangents are straight, and just backing me up in terms of the obvious nature of the arguments I'm putting to her. So with, 10, 15 people all saying the same thing to her, it's not sinking in. So, I mean, I hadn't come to the conclusion perhaps she's a shill. I'd just come to the conclusion perhaps she's stupid. Sorry, Rachie, if you're listening. I mean, I did tell you in the chat with slightly more stern words, I'll admit.
It's one or the other. You're either doing it on purpose because you can't, or you are really thick. And genuinely, I don't think she's that thick. Because if we're now at a point where she's saying to you, you can have an area of equal altitude on a ball, that's too much regression for somebody that's been in this game that long to backtrack and use that unless they're being a bit ranty.
Hold on a minute. To say you have an area of equal altitude on a globe is to say level is curving and deny the mathematics that would give you a globe.
Yes, that's correct.
So no.
Yes, that's correct. That's exactly what she's doing.
I wouldn't. I'd be like, so you're denying that it's a globe then, is what you're doing.
That's one step too complex for somebody who doesn't understand that
By
refraction
saying-
means you haven't got a straight line anymore. But yes, that would be the next step.
Well, no, surface level, it's in the math. It's horizontal in the math, running parallel to eye level. It's there. If you deny that, you deny it's a globe. You can't have both. You can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, I told her that.
Nathan, but Brian's been saying it for the longest time. She hangs around in those baller chats and they confuse the shit out of you. She is totally confused or stupid.
She listens to the wrong people for sure, but if she doesn't understand that you can't have a tangent to a non-geometric location, then it doesn't matter who she listens to at that point, because it seems she can only take in what the baller say to her, because they just have plasters, like band-aids over things that they can't deal with, and that's what refraction is in the Black Swan. And saying refraction is a complete destruction of the globe when a baller says that. So I don't know. It's not worth the effort if someone is going to leave them off.
They never apply refraction. They imply inflation. It's not refraction. It's inflation. They inflate the sphere to make it match the flat plane that you're measuring.
Yeah, Brian covered that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, no, he did.
I mean,
we talked about it.
I said that like it was the sarcastic way of saying it. I actually meant that in sincerity. You did
I say
actually
that is Brian's reveal, isn't it? The 7/6, 10/6. It is
Yes.
inflation.
Yes, that's what I wasn't being sarcastic and saying, "Oh, Brian covered that 2 weeks ago."
The one time
but it
it's
shouldn't
true.
be called terrestrial.
But technically,
It shouldn't be called terrestrial refraction.
It shouldn't
Actually,
be.
you're
No.
right, Brian. It is.
It's a bait and switch term, right? Because they're inflating the ball and calling it bent light.
If you saw the things I posted, that Ruhiff posted to me yesterday, I posted them in Master B yesterday, and Ruhiff can't understand how the light is not bending. It's a straight line of sight, and the globe is unbending, and he can't get that, and he's trying to fight against it because he doesn't seem to want to accept the globe maths basically for it. Over 6 hours, I don't know, whatever. But if they can't call it refraction.
No, you can't cope with it because
not.
when his words of, well, this is solved by refraction, and he's gone into great detail about how refraction itself works, when you show him that that is not what is occurring in his maths, there's a cognitive break because he's barking on about it being light bent and that resolving issues like the Black Swan, leading to me asking him how the geometric horizon's working out for you. And you are pointing out, no, you've got a straight line to it. You're all right, Roofy, there. Check it out. Brian's giving you the straight line and you don't even want it. Right? Because that means he hasn't got refraction anymore in the way they've all described it. They've got an inflating ball.
Exactly. I mean, when they were trying to claim a bent tangent, right, that you can't do that. Tangent lines can't be bent. And then, but in reality, they don't have. They have a straight line of sight, but to a non-geometric location. There's no, it's nonsense. They don't have anything. There's no way out of it. And like they're trying to make you believe that every time you look at if I look at the Black Swan image 10 times, that 10 times my eyesight is being curved around the ball. That's literally what they're like. So if I close my eyes and open them 10 times, the 10 times I've looked around the ball. When you're looking at the Black Swan.
Does someone call my name?
No. Well,
is your name Thomas?
10 times.
Oh, 10.
Refraction and height of eye is for 90. It's not for unbending a ball. It's to establish 90. So all the corrections are for flat Earth.
Hello.
Hello.
Afternoon.
Afternoon. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
It's over
watching.
there.
About any scientific evidence of gravity?
Are you
No,
wanting to
there's
know
no-
about it?
What's gravity? We don't know. Next question.
Go on, John.
I was going to say, are you curious about the eccentricity of orbits? Is that why you would ask that question?
I don't know. I can hear some noise. It's like... You're going to need a flare for that. That's a Lamborghini going past.
That's pretty good.
So I don't remember Isaac Newton or Albert Einstein proposing a hypothesis, to the best of my knowledge, for gravity. So no, it would be impossible.
Yeah, you'd need an observed natural phenomena as opposed to a pseudo-Riemannian force-space-time bending invented by Einstein. Spot on. 40 people watching. Wow, early numbers. Good grief. Very warm welcome to all of you who've joined immediately to this live stream. Please share the show. Hopefully we'll have a good audience today. Great. Wonderful. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
First, you got to define what a hypothesis is used for.
Well, nobody in those fields knows or uses the scientific method, basically. So they don't really need it.
That was a terrible paraphrasing of a Michio Kaku quote.
Yeah. So what? I'm doing it like that.
Nobody in our field uses the scientific method.
Yeah, that's right.
He almost says understands.
Nathan, what's the purpose of a hypothesis and which field usually has one?
Science, and it's a suppositional statement to establish cause and effect.
Okay, so they look through a telescope in these fields, which is the housekeeping question, and they see something, and they want to know what's going on.
Perfectly
What's
reasonable.
the next steps?
Well, that's perfectly reasonable. That's why we asked for a hypothesis. They've got plenty of natural phenomena. Like you say, look in the telescope, see something happening. That's a phenomena. It's occurring in nature, so it's a natural phenomenon. It's perfectly within the purview of science to elucidate the cause, that's the purpose of science, of that effect. With hypothesis construction, which is the supposition, you suppose you know the cause of the effect, and you write it down with an alternative hypothesis, which is to say your supposition will cause the effect you're studying. If you're looking at a star, whatever it's doing, you suppose this, whatever it is you suppose, will cause that, the star and whatever it's doing. That's a hypothesis or alternative because it comes alongside a null. A null says, what I suppose, this thing I'm going to suppose, won't cause the effect I'm studying, whatever the star's doing in this instance. Well, that's a null or zero difference result. And it's the alternative and null together that form a scientific prediction, otherwise known as a hypothesis. Yet to be validated, prediction statement with a supposition of a cause of an effect you're studying in nature.
Right. So what's the next step after that?
Experiment. Actualization
Okay,
of a hypothesis. The actualization of the hypothesis is to vary what you think will cause the effect, your supposition, and see if it causes it or not. That's a hypothesis actualization, otherwise known as an experiment.
So empirically, they can't vary the stars.
It's not that you want to vary them, you want to induce the effect you studied. If your effect is a star twinkling, fine. That's the effect you have observed. Now, a hypothesis would be to say, I assume helium content causes twinkling star. Therefore, I will vary the amount of helium in my controlled experimental setup and see if it causes the dependent variable of star twinkle. That's a hypothesis.
Okay.
I also have a null.
All right,
A variation of helium content won't cause the star to twinkle.
Helium content. How did you get to helium?
I just made something up on the spot to give an example.
All right.
John, what were you going to say?
well, now,
Ideal gases.
Go,
Go on,
John.
John. Go on. You
Oh.
tried 3 times. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
All right. Now that we know they're not doing science, what are they actually doing when they use an equatorial mount telescope and level it?
Measuring angles off a flat plane to the dome represented by your field of vision, ascribed by tracking in something called the celestial sphere, presented hemispherically with respect to a flat plane for each observer who sees it. The stars, that is. It's a flat Earth proof.
Absolutely, it is. They even assume when they do the star maps that it's at the time, the precise time of the vernal equinox, where the Earth has no tilt, and you have one big disk extending from the Earth's equator all the way to the celestial equator, all the way to the imaginary celestial sphere, which is the field of view.
Right. Did someone post Gene's video into the Master B chat? Or can somebody post his video? Oh, you're all so helpful now that we're live.
Probably Righteous that could do it.
Yeah,
You're there,
just got
Righteous.
back in a sec.
Thank you very much. There's normally all sorts of comments. Oh, here we go. Is this it? Flat
Yes.
Earth, frustratingly stupid. Is that it? I think
Yes.
that might be it. It's Bebe with a buzz that's typically on the on this game as opposed to me. So who is this guy? He looks vaguely familiar. Okay, we'll do our usual shout outs for this guy. On the fly, because I don't know who it is. Okay, this guy's called United Side Channel. Okay. Got 35,000 subscribers, so fairly substantial channel. As always, let this dude know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. So there is going to be, any second now, a link to this dude going by in the chat. And in the politest possible way, and in the vain hope that he would return the favour should he respond to us, there's a link going by. So we help him in the algorithmic love in the hope that he would do the same for us in return, as we receive none as flat earthers. Algorithmic love, that is. So please let United Side Channel know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. The video, which has been provided by Gene today, is Flat Earth is frustratingly stupid. Okay, fine.
Well, I would say that flat earthers on a whole, a lot of them can be frustratingly stupid. So I can empathize.
That's a gross oversimplification and stereotyping fallacy, but fine. I am a flat earther. I take great offense to that.
How dare you, John?
Yeah,
Flat
being
parody
deadly
can
serious.
be frustrating, maybe.
Hold on, it's just stereotyped every single person in this room. Come on, John.
I know I didn't. I said the majority of flat earthers can be frustratingly stupid.
Oh, thank God, I'm not a
Not all
majority.
of them.
How does that make it better? I don't understand what's going
It's
on.
okay, I'm not a majority,
happening?
so that's,
Well,
that's
John, if you can't get what John's saying, you're actually proving what he's saying.
Maybe. Thank you. That's so wonderful to prevent me from moving forward in my ignorance to claim a discussion point. Sometimes I have to play dumb 10th. But thank you for ruining that little magic trick. Please expand a little bit further, John.
Well, there's people within, there's the flat earthers, and then there's us, and we're in a tiny corner pointing out objectively what's true. And then it seems like there's people around us and listening. But after you get out so far from that area, you run into flat earthers that assert there's non-physical, physical mediums, that the Earth's rising up. So I can understand the frustration if you are just taking a cursory glance at the subject.
It's almost like algorithmically this notion of a flat Earth was offered up to the most batshit insane conspiratard idiots that could be looking for material to peruse when searching YouTube. It was they that were offered it. So for me, when I was looking at subliminal messages, I got offered up flat Earth on an auto-suggest with math parallel telling me Earth's flat. Why? Well, I'm looking at a conspiratorial subject. Right? So when you find people who are talking about clone centers and the Anunnaki and the, what else is the Mandela effect, they're the people who are offered up this subject. So give it to the most kooky weirdos out there and have them be the ones to disseminate this truth, because they're far easier to ridicule, rather than the notion that Earth is flat, which is demonstrably the case. So get it to the kooky idiots to put out there, then no one will believe it. What a wonderful ruse.
Yeah, but that happens in all the fields. We had that one video where a guy on Joe Rogan's show came and said, Mitchell Cook was off the rails. He's crazy. What he's talking about. They've had 70 years to prove string theory, and it's like a startup with no product, and they keep throwing millions and millions of dollars at it. So it's within every field that people say, don't listen to this group of people within this topic.
Okay, so there we go. That's us discussing his title. I'll do a plug again because there was such distance between us and actually covering it. But his link's going to be going by in the live stream chat. Please let him know if you are watching live, or indeed if you're watching after the fact, that at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, and hopefully it'll give him some algorithmic love also. I don't know if he's promoted. He may not be. We shall see. Anyway, should we get into this? Let's have a listen to what he's got to say. It's quite a long video, 20 minutes.
First episode of
loud.
Break Brad, a series that I've been teasing.
That's the problem with not having a video queued up in the pre-show. Let's just get that under control. Let's just do it on the fly.
For quite a while now. Anyone who's watched any of the other side channel videos will know that I keep going on rants, because there's things in this world that piss me off. So this series is a home for me to go on all of these rants. And today, I'm starting...
Like he's quite a new videographer based on that intro.
Off big with one of the things that I think annoys me the most in this world, on this planet, on this globe, and that is the flat Earth conspiracy. Why does it annoy me? Because it's fucking stupid.
No swearing.
It's just so stupid. Like, it's not...
Okay, go ahead.
I have to agree with him. Yeah, it's not a conspiracy. It's stupid to call it that. Conspiracies are, like, I mean, yeah, how can you measure a conspiracy? But you can measure the Earth flat. There's 10,000 sites a day to prove it's flat. No, I totally agree. It's not a conspiracy. It is stupid to call it that.
Not just the actual flat Earth model is stupid.
Model?
What model?
All of the models of the globe have been derived from flat Earth. If you want to call them models, that's fine. But that's where your globe came from. So to decry models, number one, let's see a globe model. Number two, let's see any mathematics to infer a globe through a certain function that haven't come from a flat plane to begin with. They all have.
But the way they try and prove it or disprove the globe...
So this is going to be a baseless assertion and stereotyping fallacy?
Or everything. It's so dumb. And it just flies in the face of...
Baseless assertion. Just so dumb.
Everything that humanity has been trying to do over the past...
Depends how we get on. 75 people watching.
Pure ad-hom nonsense.
Oh, we're only quarter of an hour into the live show and there's already 75 people watching, which is great. Again, a warm welcome to all of you. I don't know why the numbers are ramping up a bit quicker than usual. So we'll obviously get to 100 quicker than usual, which is great.
Centuries or millennia, which is to grow and evolve and change as a species and get more intelligent and find out more about the world.
Evolution is a hoax. We can debunk that. And to evolve as a species would be to invoke evolution, which is nonsensical.
Yeah, and the becoming intelligent over time, that too is...
Yeah. How do you become... How does he know what the purpose of anything is, number one? Number two, how do you do this intelligence increase without information? Because what he's just talked about there removes information.
Well, and it flies against that because...
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm talking.
When Brian's talking...
Yeah, I'm talking.
Yeah, and I want to talk next. And I want to talk after when you're done.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ted. Yeah. How do you have intelligence come from no information and a situation that where only matter and energy exists, and that had to exist prior to the Big Bang even happening. So where's this intelligence coming from? Because he's just threw information out the window.
Wow, with just a couple of off-the-cuff comments, we were straight into the ontological primitives, but fair enough. Go ahead, 10th.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this video. I didn't pick it, but I could tell already that this person has not done good research. He's just using the same things I hear from normies, and it's going to be interesting to see the depth of his research. So it's going to be a bunch of these stereotype fallacies, ad homs, and how stupid these people are. But then you come visit FED debates, and you dig it a little bit, and you say, oh my gosh, they're using flat Earth for everything. They even use it for the globe model. This guy doesn't know anything about the equatorial plane. He doesn't know anything about vernal equinox. He doesn't know anything about angles.
Well, he probably just watched one David Weiss video and now thinks he knows all flat Earth arguments.
Everything they come out with is just horse shit. It's just all based on crap, like terrible experiments that anybody can just look at and go, that's shit. Like one of the most famous ones is so they don't think that gravity is a thing.
See, I told you. All you got to do is type in YouTube, and YouTube and people on his site say gravity isn't a thing.
Okay,
This guy
Is there such a thing?
had physics in school from the lingo that he uses. Like, this guy really doesn't know anything.
Okay, Brian, go ahead.
Is there such a thing as a terrible experiment? I mean, how can an experiment be terrible?
Okay, he doesn't know what experiments are. He doesn't know what science is, and he doesn't know what gravity is. He's clearly only educated to a high school level in terms of gravity. That much is obvious immediately. Go on.
Right, and I went with the high school level of gravity, because if he was going to describe gravity of an object in motion, he would use eccentricity, which is a flat Earth, horizontal plane deviation. So, yeah, that is.
You're gonna need a flat Earth for that.
Are you sure about the high school level education? Are you sure it just isn't middle school or something? Because he's not using any words.
He's saying gravity's not. Listen to the words.
That he knows anything.
Yeah, we heard that first time. Yeah, he said they think gravity, stereotyping fallacy with flat earthers, isn't a thing. That's how he phrased it. Well, a thing. What do you mean a thing? That infers, as far as I'm concerned, he's talking about something in physical reality. A thing, like a lollipop. Yeah? That's what he thinks gravity is. No, it's a description in pseudo four-space time invented by Einstein in a geometry. Now, if you're beyond high school education level of what gravity is, you wouldn't be saying, oh, they think it's not a thing. That's just crude garbage language from somebody who's ignorant. You'd be far more specific if you were educated to a higher standard in terms of what gravity is, in terms of its fourth-dimensional bent space-time as a result of the uneven distribution of mass. That's Einsteinian gravity. He clearly is not at that level.
Nathan, real quick, what does George Muser say about gravity?
Quote, Scientific American editor George Muser, gravity is not a force.
How about Brian Cox?
Quote, Professor Brian Cox, there isn't really a force of gravity at all. End quote.
Okay, so they must be flat earthers.
Gravity isn't real, and that water will always find its level. That's the thing they always...
Yeah, like used as a tool for establishing level. Yeah, it does. That's why it's used as a tool.
Say, water will find its level.
Experiments. I mean, doing that is a terrible experiment. I mean, it's also, as you said, a tool that's used in construction and architecture and all that, but it's a terrible experiment.
His own side says the exact same thing. Nobody disagrees. Water always finds its own level. It's just that his side calls level curved. But they don't disagree that water finds its own level.
Let's be clear. We had this whole argument for 2 hours yesterday, Brian. When you say his side, no. The anti-flat earthers, when they reach the point that they require a flat plane to describe a globe, will claim, in opposition to globe geometry, that level is curved. Let's be clear. Their side don't say that. That's not what the maths of a globe, if that's what their side is. But if their side is individual dicks that don't understand their own argument, then yeah, maybe.
Well, they're not with us. I put it that way.
We thrashed this out, though, didn't we?
wouldn't
It
even
was
go into
2
that.
hours of this yesterday, wasn't it? I mean, I sat through it all for a reason. I'm sure there was a purpose to it. And the purpose, as far as I was concerned, was to ascertain that there is a distinct difference between anti-flat earthers who claim non-rhetoric based overcomes like Bendizontal versus the absolute implicit requirement of globe geometry, which is actually based on a flat plane, to have horizontal be level and eye level be level and not bending. Those principles must hold true for their geometry, and when an anti-flat earther, referred to you in a moment's notice as being their side, that's where you end up with a 2-hour discussion opening up again, which it just has by me.
Yeah, but, well, how did they deal with water levels then?
They don't.
Without any of them. If you believe in a globe, see, this is the thing, and I have to call it like the shadow of Bev for this. This is what Bev has been banging on about, even though it's not a proof that level is horizontal on its own. But how do you deal with a water level tool if level has to be horizontal? If you believe you're on a globe like this guy, then he doesn't even realize that he is actually claiming that
Let me answer.
water always does find its level, and it is curved.
Okay, I get it. The answer is, but for reification, you have to understand the principles of a flat earth employment to get to your notion that you're asserting by way of reification. Now, if you can understand that sentence, that is to say that you understand that what you have translated from flat earth measurements into a description of how the sky appears to us, so you can get better ideas of where the motions will lead in the future, then you can appreciate that that methodology described with a ball surface is not the world you're actually standing upon, but useful as a tool to describe the motion of the heavens. Once you understand that, you would appreciate in that moment, upon appreciation, that it's a reification fallacy to imply that the model inference of a sphere Earth is actually the ground you're stood upon. Now you're asking, what do you do at that point when they either accept the reification of a globe we're not standing on, inference from a globe that's actually measured flat, to juxtaposing the reification fallacy they're now going to be guilty of onto you in rebuttal? Well, if you're going to take up their rebuttal and not point out that you've got to reify what is essentially coming from a flat plane in the first instance to now argue about your reification and how it holds true, then that's your bad, Brian. That, again, 2 hours of discussion yesterday. I couldn't have summarised this so concisely unless I'd listened really carefully.
But it's not my bad. It's nothing to do with me.
Yeah,
I'm
it
not
is.
the one claiming
Absolutely
that level
your
is
bad.
curved.
With conclusion, Brian wrong. Do you not remember?
No, that wasn't. That doesn't. No, I wasn't wrong to say that they are claiming that level is curved. This guy has to claim it also. He can't.
Yeah, but
level
he's a
can't be
guy.
horizontal for him.
Okay, this guy says curve is unicorns. So have we got a battle against that now, Brian? That's the standard, is it? This dick says curved is bent and bent is straight, and therefore bendizontal. I don't have to argue with that when I can go to the curve calculator and go, okay, this flat earth based curve calculator with a dingleberry dangling beneath and the surface level horizon you can never see below the surface level requires geometric principles hold true in terms of horizontal and level. Here they are described as eye level and surface level. They are factually straight. Your response, but this dick's going to say it's bent. Okay.
Well, he has to.
Yeah, I know he does. But is that my concern, that he's suddenly in cognitive dissonance?
No, but this is the point, you see. This is the point. He just said, flat earthers say that the water always finds its level. No, everybody, not just flat earthers, everybody says that. But some people don't mean that level is horizontal. And that includes him. The point is, he's attacking us on something that is his biggest problem. He can't claim level is horizontal and claim to be standing on a globe.
Perfect.
He can't do that.
Oh, finally we get there. Yes. So in other words, you concisely now pointing out his straw man argument is where we can move on, rather than focusing on the fact that their people will claim horizontal is it's just so convoluted and confusing for an audience member, because no, the globe mathematics do not claim that. Now we're finding out even more advanced, and this was discussed in the pre-show also, and in sincerity, Brian did actually cover this a couple of weeks ago, about how terrestrial refraction isn't a bent line. It's the surface being inflated at the rate of r. It was right in front of our eyes the whole time. Just nobody had recognised it. Well, Brian points it out and suddenly you go, all right, not even their refraction described and juxtaposed with bent light has anything to do with bent light in their maths. None. Zero. Because it's 7/6 of the radius. Where's the light coming into that when you're bending the radius? It doesn't. It isn't. It's just tricky maths that then gets described as being terrestrial refraction when applied in standard form, because that's what it's titled. But it isn't.
Right.
Who knew?
The terrestrial refraction applies to like space itself, basically, as they apply it, not to the light.
No, it applies to the globe.
Reality warping
that's wrong.
influence.
No, you weren't there yesterday, clearly. No, it does not. It applies to the surface of the sphere dingleberry below the flat plane you're measuring the differential from. The dingleberry grows at a rate of 7/6 of the radius. You used to describe it as them flattening it out, Arwin. Correct, because they're making the ball less bally from a vantage point they put you on, where they have a horizon below surface level, called Earth curve.
Right, but the mathematics itself is not an optical alteration; it's a spatial alteration.
Yes, I see. Point. No, I mean, when you said spatial, I see what you mean now. Yes, you're correct. I was wrong to correct you.
I must say two things on this. First of all, it was actually Adam who was the first to point that out. It was Adam who first pointed that out a long time back. And I understood it, but I didn't point it out first. It was Adam. And number two is their globe, because in the Black Swan, they have to claim it's refraction, right, which destroys their model. Because they have to claim that the geometric horizon is only in the maths. That means every horizon is claimed to be a refracted horizon, which means that every horizon or everything you see all the time is always a refracted over 6R globe. Now, we can't call it refractive because it doesn't meet the definition of refraction, but that's what they call it. The point is that they don't ever even have a circle. Their globe, that they like to call, this is paradoxical, is always an arc length that is bent or unbent at different degrees. They never have an actual globe because they never have less than 7/6R, which means they always have, they're claiming they're living on an arc length that changes in degrees of bend.
Correct.
That's what they're claiming.
Right, so the reification of what they're describing with their maths once reified is that arc length, and it's changing and varying size and not balliness because it's only to a certain point, but the mathematical derivation of the R value it's all based on comes from a flat plane. So you've got Al-Biruni measuring dip to a physical geometric horizon, or a measurement that gives you your equatorial plane and globe Earth equator, i.e. elevation angle measurements to Polaris. Again, kudos to Brian for pointing this out about a month ago. So as much as we sarcastically say Brian did this a couple of weeks ago, there is a reason why that sarcasm exists. It's because so many times Brian was there to point out, I had made a video about this a couple of weeks ago, actually. And that's how it became the sarcastic gag. But it's not to say that it's not true, because Brian does actually do that. Just to make that clear, our sarcasm might get misconstrued as us saying Brian's useless when he's actually not. Far from it. Anyway, the point is, with this particular reification to an arc length, the R value itself that is going to give you the varying arc lengths you've reified into the world you're standing on comes from a flat plane. This is so over this guy's head, by the way. This is so far beyond this guy's comprehension. If somebody has, and I hope they have, let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, and he comes and he listens to this, he won't have the slightest idea what we're talking about. You realise that, right?
Yeah.
Nathan, in mass would be... Well, okay, go, John.
Well, no, I was just going to say that this math that we're talking about, in the math, takes place below surface level. The inflation of the circle underneath the flat plane it all, whether it's refracted or it's not, is all below surface level. Everything he heard, he's going to think is word salad to him. He's not going to get that.
No, I totally
Nathan,
agree.
Master B, based on this guy's last statement about water, I have 5 pictures of LIGO. The laser that had to be horizontal aligned.
What's
They
this?
have
I've got a photo. What's this big trench-looking like thing next to it?
water
Oh, right. That's fascinating. Why is that there?
level.
To establish LIGO to be level with water, with a great big trench.
Yep.
I see. Thanks, Senth. Very useful.
You're welcome.
Just to add in there on what John said a few minutes ago, what they must do is create an arc length, a rate of curve of that arc length, where you can see something in a straight line. So the mathematics will allow you to see that building or that thing or whatever in a straight line beyond what you would be able to see if we were on a geometric globe of 3959 radius. But that what you're seeing is still below the surface level in reality. So whatever you're seeing in front of the horizon within their maths, right, is in reality in front of a horizontal horizon. They need to make up the distance. This is something I've been talking about, and I made videos. I think I made a video involving this, where it's a distance thing. So that's what they needed to explain with the Black Swan, for example. They needed to explain how an horizon could be at least 10 miles away from 1 foot observer height. That's what they need to explain. How can you just look in a straight line and see this thing that you shouldn't be able to see on our globe? Do you know what I mean? This is what they need to do. So yes, it's below realistic horizontal surface level, but that little bit of curvature that they have in their maths wouldn't change you being able to see it in their paradigm.
Andrew Thomas Young admits that all of his refraction studies were done on plane surface. But if Andrew Thomas Young lives on a globe, then it would have been done on a globe surface. But it wasn't. It was done on a plane surface. But then he says, but the Earth isn't flat, so we're going to have to do some geometric considerations. So you just have to understand what he's saying. It's what the thought experiment is the globe. The thought experiment is all this stuff about bendy light and all. Because everything you do requires a flat Earth, and all roads lead to flat Earth. Even his refraction studies, which aren't correctly the proper refraction he's talking about.
Sure, the studies.
Well, how can you study?
Well, hold on. The studies are part of a bait and switch with refraction. So the studies are studying refraction and done with respect to a flat plane. When he then ignores every bit of it and says, well, we're going to take geometric considerations, that's where Arwin describes it as being spatial. I.e., we're going to inflate the globe at a rate of 7/6 of the radius of a presupposed globe we can't measure in physical reality, with a tangent point horizon that only exists in the maths, and a circumferential value to an equator measured off a flat plane to Polaris. So those geometric considerations with an R taken from a flat Earth will be utilised to infer the reification of a globe with a tangent point below surface level. Not a bad summary, Nathan. I'm doing well. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, that was John.
Oh, I was
That
getting
was
ready.
John.
Yeah,
Go ahead, John.
you added it in on the end there. Their geometric considerations are still with respect to a flat plane. That's fine.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, the maths after the fact, after the bait and switch, is still with respect to surface level and eye level.
Yeah, but
Surface
see,
level.
Nathan, remember you saying yes? I'm sorry, I thought you stopped.
No, go ahead.
But
Neil.
yesterday, with the glazed look, and you had that conversation with Rachie, they ain't getting it. I don't know if it's deliberate or what, but you're gonna get that glazed look that Chocolate talks about every time John says that.
Yeah, I get it. There's going to be a certain number of people, and I've accepted this probably about a year ago. This is getting to the point where it is too complicated for some people. Now, as much as I got annoyed with Rachie, it was unnecessary for me to do so in the chat yesterday. It's my frustration with her ignorance and lack of ability to comprehend this stuff. Now, I shouldn't get annoyed with that, should I? That's not reasonable for me to get annoyed with that. Or is it? Maybe it is. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, for somebody, the average
don't-
everyday
you-
person, probably not, because it's beyond what their purview.
Right.
But Rachie has been in the arena long enough. She should already understand that.
Right, but
Well, I think.
hold on,
Sorry,
Neil,
Bob.
hold on.
I think you're giving her a compliment by getting annoyed because you know she should be getting this.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe she shouldn't. That's what I'm saying. I shouldn't be getting annoyed because I have a high expectation. So I'm saying you should be of an intelligence quota to comprehend this. It's been 3 years. You're not. Therefore, I was calling her a dumbo. I'm going, if you don't get it, you're dumb. Now, Adam was almost as unkind, but not in a back and forth discussion with the individual themselves, when he's like, she's either stupid or a shill. Well, that's my reaction to her when she's not getting it, and I'm explaining it, and there's 10 people around me in the chat also reiterating it to her, and she's taking 2 or 3 minutes to respond, and then typing out some incoherent nonsense babble about not agreeing that a bent line won't give you a tangent, or something like that, or that you can get an area of equal elevation on a globe. Things like that. You're like, what? This is obviously beyond your intellectual purview. It's beyond how much you can cope with. If you can't cope with it, I should not ridicule you for not being intelligent enough to get it. Because we can't have it both ways. I'm nearly done. Can't have it both ways. You can't say we're at the absolute tip of the spear in terms of the complexities of the argument and how they break down, and then say, what? You don't get it? That seems unreasonable, does it not?
Nathan, this happens every day on all subject matters in life. It's actually a good way to gauge people, so to speak. So let me give an example. What's the standard on any particular subject? Let's use math. 2 + 2 is 4. That's a given. That's your foundation. That's objective truth right there. 2 + 2 is 4. Okay. So then when you're talking to somebody and you're using that standard yourself, but they're saying, yeah, but 2 + 2 could be something else. They go from objective to subjective feeling. So here you've got Rachie, and I wasn't part of that back and forth chat talk, but again, she's been around a while. She understands, we think, the argument, but then she says stuff like she's saying. So then we could say, wait a minute, all this time, what's your foundation? What do you base everything on first? Is level? Is horizontal level? I mean, we got to ask basic questions, because if you go 10 steps further, if the foundation is wrong, they're going to say stupid things like Rachie does.
Hey, Sleeping Warrior.
Is there anybody in this hangout right now that has actually watched the Fight the Flat Earth interview with Rachie from the other day?
No.
Please speak now.
Still not.
No.
Happy birthday, Anthony. Happy birthday, Anthony.
Oh, is it your
Thank
birthday?
you, guys.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah.
You want us to
Thank
sing
you very
happy
much.
birthday?
Thank you very
Nobody
much.
watched the Fight the Fat Shirt video.
I endured that interview with Fight the Flat Earth. I watched for it and I was listening really, really carefully for the moment when she says that she's jumped sides. It doesn't happen. What I actually saw was Fight the Flat Earth basically bullying her with kindness. He was bullying her into submission. He was trying to put her mouth and cheesy me. Oh, come on, Rachie. I'm going to call it right now. You're a reformed flat earther, aren't you? And he's bullying her and bullying her. And he's doing it very politely and very friendly, very affably. The cheeseometer was at full speed, right? At no point did she ever say she's converted to the ball. I did not hear any word where she said that. And when she gave her explanation for why she feels as though she's kind of taking a step back, her actual words were, I'm sick of all the infighting. Not, I've accepted some evidence that we're on a spinning water ball with gas pressure without a container. None of that, no science. Her actual explanation was, I'm sick of the infighting. That's what Rachie actually said. She has not jumped back to the globe. She has not accepted any new science that we're not familiar with. She just got sick and tired of the infighting. Why does the infighting exist? Well, that's the thing that's like the problem with the likes of Bob Nodell for his incoherent dielectric nonsense. This is what happens when you push this kind of stuff. It's the effect of Dell pushing his upwards accelerating Earth. This is what happens when you push this nonsense. What's going to happen if more and more people on our side push nonsense? And the answer, you're looking at it. It is Rachie. She said she was tired of the infighting. That's it. There was no science. There was no
It's not the
evidence.
people's
There
fault
was
that are
nothing
questioning
other than the
things. It's the people's
politics.
fault that can't handle other
Game
people
over.
questioning stuff.
You
Say
didn't hear
again?
Anthony
Also-
talking?
What was this chat back and forth with Nathan have to do? Was that about infighting or a topic, particular topic of
No,
refraction?
Anthony brought up Rachie 00000's discussion with convicted violent criminal and woman beater Craig McNeil of the Fight the Flat Earth channel.
I never brought it up. I did not bring it up. I joined because somebody else brought it up. I just wanted to tell you all that at no point does she accept or acknowledge that she's gone back to the globe. That was pushed in her mouth affably, or it was like the most subtle of bullying you'd ever see. He was forcing it down her throat, but very politely and friendly, because he's trying to buddy up to her.
Hold on, Anthony. We got all of that. We got
Hold
all
on,
of that.
Neil.
Let me tell you something. I've been inviting her to come and hang out where we are right now, and so we could distribute the information we have to her, and she's rejected and rejected and rejected. Well, I have kids. I can't do it, but she pops up all over the place. And now she don't like the infighting. Perhaps you just don't like the solid arguments, because
Well,
it seems like she don't want to do with the solid arguments.
Well, the main thing that the Sleeping Warrior mentioned was that she never mentioned that she switched over. And I also heard somebody that watched the video, and they said she never mentioned that.
No,
she didn't.
no way. You mean to say? Hold on a second. This is a hold on.
She's on the fence.
Hold on. Doesn't mean stop to Armin. You mean this is quite a shocking revelation? We need to actually get this on record, like with the time and date and everything. You're telling me that people came to the comments and chat and lied about people converting back to the globe? I really
Listen,
must make it.
imagine, right? Just imagine, just for argument's sake, that Nathan was trying to admit to the world that he was something, insert suitable thing. Let's just say, for example, let's just say he's coming out of the closet, right? And he never actually says the words, I'm gay. But somebody else is putting those words in his mouth at all times. And he never says it, but somebody else keeps doing it over and over and over again. And in the end, he submits, right? But still never says it. Did he admit that he was gay? The answer is no. Was he bullied into submission? The answer is yes. Go and watch that interview with Rachie on FTFE, and somebody tell me anywhere, give me a timestamp for where she says, I don't accept that, that we live on a flat plane or whatever, words to that effect, because it's not there. But I can give you 10 examples where she said things like, well, I'm not sure about the evidence for this argument, and I'm not sure about, and Fight the Flat Earth says, yeah, because there is no evidence for flat Earth, is there? And she's like, well, maybe there is, but and you can see she sat on the fence. Brian is correct. Or Arwen was correct. She sat on the fence.
This is why.
But at no point does she concede. So he's bullying her into submission. That's what he's doing.
Yeah, but how does that have anything to do with us now at this stage? I mean, why should we be so concerned?
We shouldn't.
I mean, I personally gave,
because of the perception.
I understand what you're saying, Anthony, but I'm not attacking you here. But I personally gave Rachie time. I found it hard to even get her to get communication out of her. Let her go. I mean, okay, Grant, go the way of Ranty if you want. It's none of my business. That's not going to change the nature of the world. You know what I mean?
The reason why it's important is because that she's being
part show of Fight the Wife Beating shirt in the first place.
Hold on.
The reason why it's important is because she's being pinned
Stop. Not wife beating, right? Outrageously violent convicted criminal Craig McNeil beats women with offensive weapons, right? That's been admitted by himself. Yes, he does beat women, but I don't know about wife. I don't think he's even married. So it's unreasonable to call him a wife beater, but he does absolutely, by his own admission, beat women with offensive weapons. That's correct. But just not wife. Just don't want to be,
Well, to be fair, let's add a little bit of balance. He says that he simply poked somebody with a walking stick, right? He ignores that that's still technically assault.
That's not what the judge said.
Sorry. We could argue all day about the wrangle-dangle of Craig beating women with offensive weapons and his claimed mitigation for that. Meanwhile, I'd prefer not to focus on convicted violent criminal and woman beater Craig McNeil of the Fight the Flat Earth channel. He's been convicted of a violent crime. He was described as outrageously violent by the judge. These are all facts. He does beat women. I just want to focus on that rather than it being a wife, because that's not true. Woman, yes, he beats women. Yes, he's convicted of being a violent criminal. Yes, that's all true. And as John said, I'm nearly done. Bloody hell. As John said the other day, Craig will have to deal with what he is now. That's what he is and always will be. Now, it will destroy him if he can't cope with the fact he's a, according to a judge, outrageously violent convicted criminal who beats women. Now, he'll have to deal with that because that's what he is now. Meanwhile, I just want to know why Rachie is on convicted, outrageously violent criminal and woman beater fight the flat earth Craig McNeil's channel. Why is she even there?
Because she rejects to come here. She refuses to come here.
No. What it is?
Attention and excitement. I really feel that she really likes the attention. She likes people to tug at her, like, "Oh, come on, get to this side." She likes that form of attention. She goes everywhere and
guys. What it is? It's because Del was pushing the upwards accelerated.
Hello, can you hear Sleeping Warrior replying?
It's because Del was pushing the upwards accelerating Earth argument, and she bought into it, right, quite strongly. Argued for it. And against other things that perfectly explain the observations that we see in the real world and are demonstrable within scientific method and are provable and verifiable, satisfying all of the known parameters of science. She bought into the nonsense that Del was pushing, and I believe that she's realized that he's wrong, doesn't want to admit it, but rather than say, do you know what, I pushed that for a bit and believed it, but realized it's nonsense, she went to the ball earthers for comfort because she realized she'd made a mistake. Now, where did we see that before in previous examples? We've seen that with Ranty. We've seen that apparently with Seek Truth, Speak Lies. He claims the same thing. But anybody that goes for consolation or consoling from ball earthers after getting their asses whipped from flat earths or science or evidence that's contrary to their opinion, not only is it cogniz and that's the recognition of it by doing that, Jaren's probably going to do that soon in the imminent future too, but it's also it's because you're basically being rejected by your side. That is what she's doing. She's being essentially rejected by her side, and she's looking for solace. She's getting comfort from blurfs, and they're all putting their arm around her and saying, "Come back into the cult. We'll be fine with you." Ranty did the exact same thing. That's the context.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. I'm going to do a quick shout out to Jamie C Level from the chat, who says, "Sleeping Warrior talks like Rachie is this timid little child who can't stick up for herself. She's a grown woman." FFS.
Yeah, why are we dividing the thoughts of Hang on. Why are we dividing the thoughts of Rachie? Why are we not talking about the subject matter we're supposed to be talking about? Who cares if Rachie, the girl Rachie that we know, if she decided to go back and be a baller, who cares? Off you go.
It is quite specifically the title of the show, though, Brian. So go ahead, Arwen.
Yeah, okay. So I would definitely like to continue divining motivation here, or at least attempt to try to profile what's going on, and Rachie seems to pick sides a lot that when those sides create controversy. And this is what keeps happening. She likes the chaos. She likes people pulling at her like, no, don't do that. Oh, don't believe that. She likes that. She keeps choosing things that happen, events like Del suddenly starting about upward moving Earth, because she noticed everybody reacted so heavily. And that's why she chose that. She's out for chaos. She's out for attention. She's on the fence. Her feet are... I'm not done yet. Her feet
give her more attention then.
She's not coming off.
More attention to her.
Oh my God!
Yeah, just keep giving that attention to her. My gosh.
Why are we doing this?
Trying to define it.
The reason is because there are a lot of people claiming that she's jumped back to the globe for whatever reason, and it's correcting the misconception that that's not true. She hasn't said that she jumped back to the globe. What she actually said was she was tired of the infighting. Well, why do you think I've not been here for a long time? Well, it's because of the infighting caused by the likes of Bob Nodell, Del with the upwards accelerating Earth. She was as frustrated as what I was, and I took a back seat because of it. Because you don't need the rumpus and
Arwen's going to rumpus this entire discussion unless you let him make his point. He won't even let me talk. I'm the host. Right, just let Arwen get to the end of his point. Otherwise, he'll ruin everyone's from this point forth. Go ahead, Arwen.
Yeah, okay. You're projecting your good nature of yourself onto her. She's not you. She doesn't doesn't have that drive like you. She doesn't have that loyalty to people and friends like you. It doesn't work like that with her. Nothing that she's done so far, and I've kept very close eye on her, is like you are. She's out for attention, and she lied she lied about that. Oh, I'm tired of the infighting. No. She just told the anti-flat earther what they wanted to hear, because that gives them hope. Start pulling them to her to them. That's what is happening. That's what she's out for. She's attention grabby. She loves people to pull at her, and that's what's driving her. She just lied.
Okay,
to
good.
address, let me answer Brian.
Okay, 10th
Hang
man
on,
next.
switching
10th
more
man
here.
next. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Who go ahead?
10th man.
Okay,
Go
thank
on.
you. Yeah, who cares? Number one. Number two, I need something substantive. Substance, something with substance. You were in the chat just yesterday. I missed that whole thing. I've heard this thing about Craig the Flat Earth and all this, but I don't know the details. So let's say Anthony actually depicted the situation properly. Fine, set that aside. What happened yesterday between Nathan and Rachie in chat? That is fresh. What was she saying, Nathan? And what was your response? And what was the problem?
She's claiming refraction in regards to the Black Swan, saying that it's a reasonable rebuttal. And then when asked about acquisition of a tangent, she denied that it was an issue of having bent sphere-shaped air and light bending through it in terms of acquisition of tangents. She also detailed how you could have an area of equal elevation on a sphere. Those are three that I can remember of her relatively concise summaries that took her a little while to come up with. Rinse and repeat
based
all her
on
arguments.
all right. So based on that, I mean, not seeing the whole, duration of that, just based on that, that sounds eerily similar to Jaron agreeing with Mattoon about it can work on a globe just as well as a flat Earth. So they do not understand the parameters whatsoever.
I was there are things that do work on a globe and a flat Earth, though. We can't help that.
Like what?
Yeah, like what?
Yeah, like what? Let's go.
Oh, you want me to give you an example?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
please.
there's nothing that could work on a globe.
I don't have one off the top of my head.
Why did you say it then?
Not just being fluffy.
Fair enough. It was the right
Let's
timing
get
for
the
that response.
record straight. There's nothing that works on a globe. It's a joke.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Right, beyond the discussion, you can hear about it in more detail in the pre-show if you're a member, if you joined off the back of my call to action to join as a member yesterday, or you get gifted a membership or something of that likes. Check out today's pre-show in regards to the actual discussion about the topic. That would be the Flat Earth discussion. It's normally the other way around. You don't normally get the focused discussion about what was debated in that regard between me and Rachie in a chat on Flatsoid's channel. Shout out to Flatsoid, as that's where this all took place. Now we're into the whys and wherefores of the psychology and the motivation. And to Arwen, she's some, biker chasing chick that's out for the thrills and spills and causing trouble for him. Okay, if that's how you see her because you've kept a close eye on her, very suspicious. But fine, that's how you see it. Go ahead, Refracted.
She came to my chat too, and I have tried to address her, and she literally, at some point, she just doesn't listen anymore. And then she doesn't remember anything about that either. She doesn't even keep track. She doesn't care.
Okay, you don't know that it's within her cognitive capability to process this stuff, right? Some people are just not capable of processing this stuff to the level. I'm probably one of them, Arwen, right? All of this stuff that I understand, when we say it's a defense mechanism for my own stupidity when I take the piss out of Brian for knowing 2 weeks ago, right? He's obviously smarter than I am. He's figured it out quicker. He's done better research and got there before me, right? Now, even after, just hear me out. Even after he's got there, he'll put it out with me interrupting because I want to keep the background noise level low or I want to play a video. I'm not smart enough to be listening to what he's actually saying. 10 repetitions later, the penny will drop and I'll copyright it as my own and tell Brian he's stupid. Well, that's a defense mechanism, right? Because it takes me a while to get there too. Now, just because I've got there doesn't mean that I've got the gall to say you don't get it yet. 3 years later, no. Some people never will. We're at the tip of the spear.
I get. Hold on. This is to me. Come on. So yeah, I get that. But Rachie's not functioning like that because there's a big difference in everything you just said, like how you're smart, how you try to cover for yourself when you make a mistake, whatever, you know? There's a big difference. Namely, you actually keep track of what's happening. Like you will remember things when reminded, all that. She just never does. Like you have to remind her about everything.
Yeah, and the reason
she easily forgets about everything that's mentioned and then just starts completely incompatible trains of thinking and not even realizing that.
Sure. Maybe she processes things that are alongside her cognitive bias. Maybe she wants to be back on the ball. I can relate to that too. I've met plenty of people who are going on that path. Yeah, they know it's flat, but they don't damn well like it. They'd rather be back on the ball. Now, most of them turn into anti-flat earthers. Rachie might be on that path, right?
I don't know. I feel that she's going to be on that fence and just be there forever, go back and forth, whenever she feels like it or whenever
Fine, we heard that. There's lots of other people who want to get a word in here, Arwin, so we're going to go over the same points. Go ahead, whoever was trying to get a word in. I know there's a lot of you who want to say stuff. We're going to get back to this video eventually.
So when I got told yesterday that Rachie jumped back to the wall.
What happened to the other person?
Who's the other person?
You're going to need a flat earth for that, by the way.
Who was the other person? I didn't catch the name. Was it me?
John. It was Refraction.
Oh, sorry. Well, let me go off to John, please.
Go ahead, John.
Right. This entire conversation is taking place with the idea that there are sides to take in this discussion. I want to know the point of contention that you can choose a side on now with the information that we have.
You can't, but in about 7 more repetitions of that, I'll understand it as a good argument and then take credit for it.
Hold on, you can have a political position within the argument, right? This is not about argumentative position. This is about
a show about physics.
Stop, everyone stop.
Are you going to agree to the ball?
Please, Arwin, you had enough mic time. There's people in a queue. Bloody hell. Number one, no one's picking up what I thought John would get elaborated on by Arwin. He's ruined the moment. I'm not going to get him to repeat it, but I will reiterate what he's trying to say. John is pointing out that regardless of if you think you were on a ball, the prerequisite requirement for a flat earth holds true for you and me as a flat earther. He's asking, John, refracted curvature is asking, where's the point of contention? Where do they, as ballers, disagree with the necessity their globe has for a flat plane? Show me the point of contention. No one's picking up on it.
That's not true. We all pick up on it.
Don't ignore it politically.
We need a ball earther to be able to answer that.
After Anthony, I'd like to say something.
They're not going to answer that.
Okay, Anthony, then 10th, then Arwin. Arwin, bloody hellfire. I've given you your mic time and you're still ruining everyone else's bit. You can have your time after 10th. Sleeping Warrior, then 10th, then going on. What's going on? For fuck's sake, I've lost control of the show because of Arwin. Wonderful.
Bye.
Try that again.
Well, that will solve everything.
All I said was 10th, then Sleeping Warrior, and then Arwin, but that didn't come through because Arwin was rumpusing me. Now he's buggered off. Wonderful.
It's the other way around. 10th after me, right?
Correct. Yes. Sorry. Sleeping Warrior, then 10th. Then Arwin if he comes back.
So when I got told yesterday that Rachie had jumped sides, my first thought was, how does she reconcile the sky being a vacuum, right? How does she get past the sky being a vacuum? Because it's an important issue if you're going to think that you're on a spinning water ball in a vacuum of space. Because you've got to come over that. Now, they all use gravity as the container, right? Well, we know gravity is not a force, so it can't be the container, and it debunks the globe claim. But she did actually answer the question, how do you get over the sky being a vacuum? She has answered it, and I want somebody to point out what the problem is without me preloading it, right? She said, well, if you can't have gas pressure without a container, how did you get into the position where there's no gas pressure in the first place to see whether or not you need a container to create the pressure in the first place? How did you get into that example? And I was like, oh my God. Anybody want to point out what the problem with that thinking is?
The question of how you would first be in a complete vacuum to describe how, in order to have gas pressure, you'd need containment. She's asking, how did you first be in a position to do that? Is that correct?
Yeah. How did you get into that negative, that vacuum, right? How did you get into that position to prove that you need a container to have the gas pressure?
So
that's what she said.
My answer to that would be, what vacuum?
It's a burden of proof reversal fallacy by trying to prove the negative. That's what she was trying to apply.
All right. In the year 2020, January, Black Swan. I remember, man, this is a globe killer. Everyone's going to get this. And then people were saying, maybe 3 months, maybe 9 months, maybe 18 months. It's 2023, almost going to be January 2024. And we don't even have flat earthers who understand this. If the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then underline it, capitalize it. Every horizon distance measurement must be no more than 1.225 times the square root of observers' height in feet. We have oil wells, platforms, 9.41 miles out. They don't
have
get
an
this.
unfalsifiable model.
Can you
because
hear
they
him in the
always
middle
claim
of that?
refraction.
Can you hear him? Can you hear him? He's obviously in the middle of something. Can you hear that?
My bad,
Earth
love.
is not a sphere based on their claim of 3959. So you got this unbending 7/6R one day, 70/6R another day, 4,120/6R another day. They just keep making the globe flatter and flatter.
Okay. From what we've talked about earlier, right?
What does R stand for?
Cook, go ahead. Cookie Monster. Go ahead. What did you have to add? Or not? Probably start adding it the moment I get into something. Okay.
He said something like from our standpoint. What does that mean?
Don't know.
It's a
We're not even
measurement.
supposed to be
we
here.
know, we
I just
know
want to
the
make another
oil
point.
platforms.
Let's try that a third time.
I'm sorry, Nathan.
We're not even supposed to be here, right? This space that we occupy, we are not supposed to be occupying this space, right? We have to carve out a new space because the space we currently occupy is supposed to be occupied by kooks, Mandela idiots, clone center weirdos. That's who is supposed to be occupying this space, right? We're not supposed to be here. We're not supposed to be disseminating how the Earth is flat to give you a globe. That's not supposed to be happening. It's a fact. You can't censor it out of existence. That's why we can be here. But we'll always be ridiculed by our own side, if that's what we want to call it. Now, maybe a little bit of empathy for Bev. He's spotted that and gone, no. No, I want no part of that. And I'm kind of saying that now. Now, I'm not saying I'm ashamed to be a flat earther. Earth is flat. And if the collective term for that as an individual is flat earther, I am proud to wear that badge. But it doesn't alter the social, the separate flat earth that's been positioned in such a manner that people who have put it out up until now have been kooks, haven't they? People who want to talk about 9/11, baby media hoaxery, Sandy Hook. They want to talk about, I've already listed them, clone centers, Mandela effect, media conspiracies, powers that should not be, Illuminati. That's what those are the people that are supposed to be talking about flat Earth, not us. Right?
Yep. Feast of nonsense. You nailed it.
So
you know what makes this show great?
There's a conclusion. Okay. I wanted affirmation. Thank you, Tent. Right. There's a conclusion, though. So we have to distinguish ourselves. I like that word, distinguish. Because if you're in the audience now, there's 130 odd people watching. If you're in the audience now and you are following around, I mentioned this earlier, right? The guy who we're covering, and we will get back. I'll extend the live show so we do give this guy a fair crack. Because we only had 1 minute, 27 seconds of it. But he won't understand, and I mocked and ridiculed him for it. Right? Yeah, we're just way above this guy's pay grade. He's never going to understand any of this. And that's still true. However, if you are in the audience and you are following along and you do understand this, you're amongst a very, very, very small percentage of people. And further to that, because we are still in that subcategory whether we like it or not, you're in a very small percentage of flat earthers as well. Unique. Now, we are misfits, because as I keep saying, it doesn't seem like we're supposed to be here, and I'm chuckling about it. Maybe I should be sad. But I find that quite amusing, where I personally have found myself, I've just seen an evergreen subject wanting to be a YouTuber and found myself with a lot of passion for it. Voila, I've got a YouTube channel. But in terms of the subject matter, Flat Earth, it's supposed to be covered by Jaren. It's supposed to be covered by Dave. It's supposed to be covered by Bob. You're supposed to have ice walls and free energy and electrostatic equilibrium and quantum locking. That's what's supposed to be part of Flat Earth. It isn't. It's got sod all to do with Earth being flat. It's measured that way. But no one's supposed to be saying that.
May I ask?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. Sometimes I get in debates, and I have a hard time when people ask me what makes things go down and up, and I don't really have an answer. And I was hoping you could kind of help me, because the only best answer I have is electrostatics, and I don't even have a way to prove that.
Well, that's not an answer. That's why you haven't got any way to prove it. It's dependent on the item, and it's relative to the density of the medium that it's in.
So you're saying as long as it's heavier than the gas, it goes down, and if it's lighter than the gas, it goes up, right?
If we were friends and discussing this as a mere folly to prove nothing but discuss how the world works, then yes.
Okay, thank you.
I mean,
you also need to be aware.
Hold on.
You also need to be aware that when somebody says about the up and the down, it's the human that invokes that label so that we can understand each other when we describe what we're seeing. But the correct unit really is more and less dense. And that's why if you put contextually the background of what Nathan's just said, something more dense in its medium is going to go that way. And we describe that as down. And something less dense in its medium is going to go that way when we describe that as up. Then you can recognize that it's not really up and down. We just call it that. So it's descriptive. But it's not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not prescriptive, it's descriptive. There is no objective up and there is no objective down. We live in a medium, a density medium caused by the sun. And what we describe as up and down isn't objectively true. It's just the words that we give to it. It's just more and less dense than its medium. That is it. Simple.
However,
I tell them that they need to have a container.
Hold on, let me just ask his question. Go ahead, whoever that was in Discord. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, ask your question.
I'm sorry.
What is that Lamborghini?
No, just let him ask his question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just saying that, they need to have a container for their pressurized gas. What is that container?
I don't know. Why are we discussing this was going to be my next question, which is to say, why are we as friends having this discussion, this folly? Well, there is a reason. It's because the globe has a positive assertion that there's a downward force holding you to a spinning ball, stopping you from flying off it. That's a positive claim from the globe side they have to defend. Now, beyond the point of defending that, which we haven't done thus far, we can, as a folly, discuss the way nature presents itself in terms of relative density disequilibrium, but for no real benefit in terms of the discussion about whether or not Earth is flat or globe-shaped. And in terms of that discussion, they do have a positive claim about this very thing that they would need to prove. Go ahead, John.
Right. That's where they're trying, in a burden of proof reversal, ask you what causes up and down so that you will invoke a cause that they can put up in false dichotomy with their wrong answer. That's the only reason you're being asked that question.
Yeah, because then I feel like they think that I lost the debate because I can't tell them what's the sun, what's the moon, what's the container, why is this, why is that, and I just get bombarded.
I'll give you do you want a catch-all answer?
I don't know.
No better answer than that.
Please.
Did I make a claim about it? Repeat after me. Did I make a claim about it?
Did I make a claim about it?
Yeah, did you?
I did not.
So why are you having to explain what up and down is? Oh, because they have a positive... Anthony already pointed this out, kudos to him. Burden of proof reversal fallacy. They have a positive claim of gravity to hold them as an apologetic for you not flying off their fantasy water ball. Well, that's their burden. Why are you asking me about it?
Let them explain it then.
Pardon?
Right? Let them explain it
Yeah,
then.
let them
They
make the
say
claim.
gravity,
If I
let
don't have
them
a
break it down.
replacement model, then we live on a globe.
That's right. So if I can't explain your positive claim of gravity not throwing us off a ball, we live on a ball. Off you go, my friend,
Correct.
if that's your standard.
He's going to need also a baseline for his up and down.
Yeah,
You're
pointing
going to need
out
a flat line and a flat
Exactly.
earth for that.
you will. But my point is, though, in terms of this specific discussion point, if the person who's put that question to you has the identification of the burden of proof reversal fallacy put back to them by being asked, what claim did I make in that regard? And they then say, well, if you can't explain up and down, we're on a ball. You're dealing with, what's the word? An idiot. You've highlighted the false dichotomy burden of proof reversal fallacy, and they've said, well, just pointing out that I've got a burden of proof reversal fallacy and false dichotomy, if you don't answer my side of your positive claim you haven't made for my false dichotomy, I win. That's what I've broken it down as, because that's what it is. Then that's an idiot.
Yeah, but Nathan, see, they don't acknowledge when you bring out a fallacy. They don't even want to talk about fallacy.
Again,
they say that's all we say.
Let me just address Neil. Let me just address Neil. Yes, Neil. And at some point, today is that day for me. I am enlightened. We are not justified by trying to expect a higher level of intelligence than the person you're dealing with. If the person goes, well, I win then, I see. Then what are you going to do? Try and bring them up to a mental capacity that can understand how they lost? You can't do that, can you?
You can explain it to them, but you can't understand it for them.
Yeah, exactly. You walk away from people like that. Let them stay in the ball. Have fun.
Perfect. Oh, kiss you. Hold on. Thank you, Neil. That's right. So in regards to Rachie, when I metaphorically bid her farewell yesterday with a little bit of venom, you're better off going back to the ball, love. You don't understand this. Don't fuss your precious little head over it. Words to that effect, if not the exact words I used. My sentiment, Neil. Yeah, don't worry about it. This is too complicated for you. Just go back to the ball. Just get on with your life. Don't worry about it.
And I want to add to that. I've been trying to eavesdrop while I'm working, but as far as her saying the inside fighting and all of that, well, there's going to be inside fighting when it comes to, as Refractive said, when we have to dissect and extract the feast of nonsense perpetrators of fraud, FED, anti-globers who are making it convoluted within our community. So get over it. It is what it is. And you did us a favor by going to the globe side, as that's one of the extraction things, is to either get you to your senses to understand it and to regurgitate it the correct way, or go to the globe side, because what that does is that actually takes the head count down to the feast of nonsense perpetrator of fraud, FED, purporters. You know what I'm saying? So
you're either on a couple of different paths. You're either on a path that says, I want to figure out what the nature of our world now is. I accept that it isn't what I've been told, and I accept my own ignorance, and maybe I'll find a little bit out about it on this road. You either accept that, or you take a different path. Now, there are many different ways to describe that path. Anti-flat earth is the most common. But that path is one where you go, yeah, but there might be a way of squaring this circle and keeping myself on that ball. Because maybe it's not true that it's flat. It's like, why go to the effort? Just go back to the ball. Well, bother. Just have a happy life on the ball. Don't worry about it.
Too much
work. Nathan, may I go?
Yeah, good.
This is a debate channel. Why do you think I've been here basically 5 days a week, 6 years going on? Is because of the infighting. See, the infighting is just it's not a proper explanation, but what it is we're all looking to base every claim that anybody makes on truth. So if someone from another channel says something, we say, well, let's look into it. Boom. All of a sudden you have so-called infighting, when really we're saying, you made a claim, where's your proof? Well, it's not, you can't see it, but it's there. Oh, so it's a belief. All of a sudden we have infighting on that topic. Okay, if you're in this arena and that bothers you, where you have to have exact definitions to things, and so that it can match up with the truth, something foundational that we can build everything upon, then maybe you shouldn't be on this topic.
Yes, Ted. They get emotionally attached to people that brought them to flat Earth. It's true. People get emotionally attached. I couldn't care.
Right, and back to the original point, which is the people who came here that Anthony dropped in to talk about, because he referenced whether or not she'd actually converted back. Why did they lie? Well, because when you're on the anti-flat Earth route, where I would suggest, just don't worry about it. Get on with it, it doesn't matter, don't be fighting us. There's no need to become convicted violent criminal Craig McNeil from Fight the Flat Earth and beat women as a result of this pain that you're left with. Just get on with your life and be a good person. You know, because cognitively it's too much for you. But they don't want that because they want to know they're on a ball and they don't anymore. So they fight the flat Earth. I mean, metaphorically, not specifically referencing convicted violent criminal Craig McNeil of Fight the Flat Earth channel who beats women. Not talking about him, just talking about in general fighting the flat Earth. Well, that you don't need to do. Just believe it and get on with it like people who are in various different cults and religions. You know, yeah, you haven't got any proof, but don't worry about it. Don't worry about us. Now, we know it's measured flat. Now, that might cause a social anxiety in some instances, like with Bev, where he might want to deny that he's a flat earther because of the social anxieties these things cause. Well, again, that's your own weakness. You know, and frankly, it's not our right to judge these people for their lack of cognitive ability or weakness in social settings. Just accept that you can and be a better person yourself for knowing, A, you've been lied to on a massive scale, and B, you're pretty ignorant about how the world actually does work, and C, you don't need to answer burden of proof reversal fallacies for people who are simply seeking pain relief. And that leads them to lie about Rachie being converted back to the globe, because that affirms their real requirement for total conformity, for total consensus. Everybody must agree, because when you don't, it causes trouble.
Yeah. And if you watch that video with Fight the Flat Earth and you watch it on mute so that you don't hear any sounds, Rachie might as well have a big neon sign over her head saying victim and an arrow pointing at her, because it's as if she's confessing to being the victim of domestic violence for all of her life and how she managed to, beat off her demons and all that, because she's describing it with such sullen tones, and so you can see in her facial expression, in her body language, in the way she's holding herself, she's battered. You can see it. That's not subjective biased. You can watch it yourself. You can see that she's battered, psychologically, emotionally battered. She's not basically saying, I'm going back to the globe. She's saying, I'm tired of the abuse, the vitriol, the snide, the nastiness. But the bottom line is, Rachie, when you realize that there's people in this topic that are intentionally causing confusion so that people that are sat on the fence like yourself revert back to globe because you haven't got anything to, you're not strong enough to basically say, hang on a minute, gravity isn't a force. If you can't do that, then you are going to revert back to the default position because everybody knows the Earth's a globe, right? Well, you've been played. That's what's happened.
Well, something I said to Rachie, seems you're all having the conversation, I have to join in on it. Something I said to Rachie when she first turned up was, the nice ones are predators too. Talking about the ballers. Because what I mean by that is it doesn't matter whether they are actually a good person who just believes in the globe or whatever, or they're nasty or whatever. The point is that they have an agenda. Flat Earth terrifies them. Their not being the globe is terrifying for them. So they have an agenda because of that fear. And they're willing, someone who may not ever lie to anyone, ever outside in our normal world, will end up telling a lie because they want to keep the globe alive. And so when I said to her, the nice ones are predators too, that means even the ones that come along and seem like genuine people, they are also preying on you to bring you back to the flock, because their flock is bleeding badly daily, whereas we're not. Do you know what I mean? And that's the difference. So they're terrified. They're losing numbers constantly. Right. And it is a numbers game.
And there's two natural instincts that they can work on. One is fight. The other is flight. And I'm saying you don't have to go through this, especially if you're not mentally capable. you've got the other option. Just fly away, flap, flap, flap. That's it.
Yeah, Nathan.
John's here.
Can I offer after John? I'd like to go.
Yeah,
right, John. Can you tell them there is no fence to sit on discussing the idea of how someone feels about this subject is irrelevant, so we can move on.
He's only just joined. He's
Okay, you're talking about QE then.
He's asking QE to affirm that there is no fence to sit on. If you're a baller, you need a flat earth. If you're a flat earther, you know you need a flat earth. That's it.
Yeah. I like to offer
Morning,
sports.
guys.
Good morning, Chaco. I like to offer a sports analogy to what's going on. So if you have a professional sports team, you put your best people. Now you're running the score like, you're up so much that you look at the bench and say, all right, I want these other players to get some experience. Those players go into the game knowing that there's only 10 minutes left and you've got a commanding lead. And even if they make a mistake, it doesn't matter. The people on the front line, they like the fight. They don't flight. They like the fight. We like the fight. We like hard questions. We fight among ourselves. We want the truth. So we run up the score big time. And then people come in and say, hey, you won already. We're a bunch of bench sitters. Can we get in the game? Yeah, it's 70-0 and there's 10 minutes left. Yeah, go in. They go in because of their makeup. All of a sudden, the other team scores 12 points or whatever the sport is. And then they come back and we still win the game. And so you got flat earthers who are going to demolish, and I'm talking about the panel members here and some of our audience who are in Discord, kicking butt on a daily basis. We hear it all the time. Okay, those are the people, the first team. Second team members come in when the lead is up. But then, they're not the people who can handle it yet. They need time to mature. So maybe she can mature, maybe she can't, I don't know. But I haven't liked what I've seen because it's not the first team.
So we're the Miami Dolphins.
70, what was that, 70-20 or something?
Something outrageous.
Yeah, and on that terrible analogy, I'm going to say, first and foremost, if you're watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow.
And they say that it's impossible for water to be any other shape than flat. Which is one of the explanations for why they think that the Earth can't be a globe, because the water will just fall off the sides. I know, it's stupid. But, I mean, let's not even get into the fact that, surface tension can make water droplets, which are round, or the fact that if you fill up a cup really high, it can have, a bend to it. These are just tiny scale things that can...
Sorry, one second.
The hell?
That's incorrect.
What the hell was that?
Yeah, that's incorrect. What you have is at
everyone
the
else,
edges.
let's start as we mean to go on the after show, right? So Brian's going to attack water droplets and meniscus layer. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. The water droplets are based off of the air pressure it's falling through. And what's going on at the top of a cup, it's flat. It's just the edges are curved down. And that's due to hydrogen bonds. This guy, he just told a lie there. He said, it's curved at the top. It's not. It is never curved at the top of a cup. That's totally a lie. It's curved at the edges, but the top is flat. That was a lie. He just lied.
Like this picture of LIGO. Like LIGO. Go ahead, whoever's next.
Go ahead.
So, in other words, my proof of millions of tons of water maintaining the outside of a ball is here. Look at this drop of water. Okay.
And if you look closely at the cup of water, or say the glass of water, which you can see through, isn't the curve at the very edge more of a upward curve, if any, and not a downward curve within the cup? Because of its containment.
There's no curve, dude. They're just trying to mess with my head.
Talking about a very, very tiny area at the edge of.
Well, I'm being sarcastic, but I'm saying
My
if you're going to really dig into the details of it.
My bad. My answer to your question interrupted the addition to your question. Sorry about that.
D-Rose, there is a saying, my cup runneth over. Think about it.
Thank you.
Hold on a
Sorry,
second.
Nathan.
All I hear
didn't
with
mean
the
to rush.
raindrop, all I hear with the raindrop is someone denying sea level.
Earth's a globe,
So-
man. Raindrops.
John,
Yeah, he's claiming
it's been
level is
about
curved.
3 solid weeks where basically everything that refracted curvature has said has been gold. And initially he was frustrated because he was saying this stuff and he wouldn't even get acknowledged initially. Now he's got me interrupting everybody every time he does it to go, yeah. So in essence, when he makes this argument, he's denying a fundamental principle that he requires to be on a reified globe. Right, John? Refracted.
Yeah. No, he's well, he might be busy, but you know what,
Hold on,
Nathan?
nobody's rejecting him. Nobody's ignoring it. We're just so blown away by it that it causes us to be totally silent. It's a truth that causes silence.
Okay, I'll get it out. Yeah, we got it when John said it. You finally got it, Nathan.
But
yeah,
you
I
know
was
what?
talking about that with John a long time ago.
Easily a couple of weeks.
But that water bubble is what my brother-in-law, who's a normie, I'm not going to say he's indifferent because he always says it doesn't really matter to me, but it does really matter to him because he always raises the eyebrow. He gives a side face whenever the discussion of flat earth comes up. So you know how they do. They'll try to act like it doesn't make any difference to them, but it does because they still want to believe in that globe thing. But the water bubble, I remember that being said to me like 2 years ago. And that's something that a simpleton or somebody that doesn't know, you wouldn't expect that from a globe person, even though they are simpletons, but you wouldn't expect that to be somebody who's supposed to be knowledgeable about their argument or their claims to use water bubbles. Or
like LIGO. Essential, like LIGO to...
Can I just make the point? Sorry, go on, Tent. I'll go after you, but it's important.
No, like the LIGO. They use water to align the lasers, so it's curving. We have curving lasers now.
Well, this guy just claimed that level is curved. Sea level is curved. That's what he claimed.
Yeah, that's what John just said.
I'm sorry.
That's what John just said.
Well, I was saying that earlier, that's what he has to claim. And you and I was trying to, like, you were having it, remember earlier on, me and you were having a thing. That was the point I was saying.
It's probably just I
You
couldn't
got a love
understand your
affair
accent
with
or
John
something.
right now, Brian.
Yeah, I think when they bring up the raindrops, you should say, why is your gravity bipolar and just leaves the millions of pounds of cloud water there?
Gravity.
What gravity?
What gravity?
Yeah. What gravity?
You don't even give him that.
Well, you're going to need a flat plane to assert it. The gravity, that is.
I'll just laugh. I'll just laugh at the drop of water they're showing me. That's supposed to prove that millions of tons of water can maintain the outside of a shape.
Completely disprove what they're talking about anyway, because they're saying water can never not be flat, never not be level. When it can, you can do it in your fucking kitchen. Anyway, they try and prove that the globe can't hold water by taking a ball and pouring water onto it and going, hey, look, it runs off the side. It runs off the side, see? So what? Even like, let's take into account as well, when you pour water over something like that, there will be water droplets stuck to the side. Like, water droplets can get stuck to the side, to the underside of things. So even in your shit experiment that doesn't actually have the scale of a planet, you're still proving yourself wrong. This is the level of stupidity we're talking about, that people think that you can represent a planet with a fucking, like, golf ball and a cup of water. And they're like, this proves it.
Therefore, gravity is real and you live on a globe.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop. This is the guy sitting next to Neil in class when the teacher put water in the bucket and spun it over his head using the sides of the bucket to keep it in. And Neil says, that's not the claim. And this guy says, see, we live on a globe.
Basically, yes.
Well, there are experiments that people can do that can prove that the Earth is a globe. Like,
here we go.
Because they're always saying, oh, use your eyes, do your own experiments. It's like, you can. There's a few things you can do to prove the Earth is a globe. The easiest one, and when it comes to using your eyes, is to just look at the fucking horizon.
So we debunked the horizon as being a physical geometric sphere edge in 2020. If the horizon was Earth curve, then it would be at a set distance. That's 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. And the distance to the horizon in the Black Swan image is beyond the limitations of a claim to be hill. He'll now infer the horizon is. So the horizon's not Earth curve, and the Earth is not a sphere.
The edge of the horizon, it will go over, and you can watch it disappear. You know what you can't do?
Go on.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It was the video. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just saying it's physical when they need it to be physical. It's apparent when they need it to be apparent. It's refraction when they need it to be refraction. It's gravity when they need a magic blanket. It's just a unfalsifiable model. It's a nightmare.
Do that on a flat plane, and it's so obvious. Like, and they're always like, "Oh, if you use a powerful enough zoom lens, you can zoom in and see it."
That's a crap argument. I mean, yes, there are flat earthers out there, the ones that are conspiratards we talked about earlier, that are supposed to be covering this subject because they're numpties, that would say, zoom in. No, we would say, if the Earth's a sphere radius 3959 miles, then every distance to the horizon measurement can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and the distance to the horizon in the Black Swan is beyond 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. Therefore, the horizon's not Earth curve, and the Earth's not a sphere. No mention of zoom cameras. Every mention of the horizon and the maths that you assert that it must have, and a debunking of the maths you say it must have based on where the horizon is. That's what we do. Not just zoom in. Yeah, that's Dave Weiss's standard crap, basically. And Dave Weiss's crap standard will be addressed by this level. Yeah? If you're listening, Dave, this is the standard that you put out, and this is the kind of numpty dipshit that debunks it. Yeah? Because you don't need much intelligence to overcome you can zoom in with a super zoom. Yeah? This is who can debunk that. Now, find out who can debunk Earth being a sphere radius 3959 and the miles distance being based on the observer height and the distance being demonstrated beyond that claimed physical limitation. Yeah, you see the stark difference between our argumentation and whether or not this guy, if he was watching this right now, would have a massive glazed look on his face. Wouldn't have the slightest idea. He doesn't even know his own maths.
Nathan,
he's just
hang on. In navigation, the horizon is used for establishing 90 with the star that's thousands of miles away with a shared baseline, the zenith of the star and the zenith of the observer, both GPs. This is so ludicrous to say all you got to do is look at the horizon and you know you live on the globe when it's used as a measurement to create a 90 for thousands of miles with a shared baseline. Now think about that. When do you have a 90 degree with thousands of miles shared baseline on a curving Earth?
Indeed. So where his assertion that you just look at the horizon and then try and preemptively debunk the assertion that you can just zoom in on stuff, his assertion has no practical application beyond brainwashing people into believing that the Earth represents a sphere-edge hill getting in the way of boats and buildings. It doesn't actually achieve anything in practical terms. Meanwhile, you can use a sextant to establish a horizontal plane of reference when measuring stars to save your life if you're lost at sea. So the practical application saves lives when measuring Earth as flat and utilising the horizon to do so. Using the horizon to claim Earth's a sphere, with it being a hill blocking stuff in the distance, has been debunked by the Black Swan and has no practical application even if it hadn't been.
But in essence,
that you can see things beyond the horizon, like being able to see, it's like, I don't know, America from England. Like, if you could zoom in, because we have telescopes that you can fucking look at, like, Saturn and get, like, detail and stuff. That means that if you could look over the Atlantic, you would be able to see America. But you can't. You want to know why? Because it's not flat. This...
So it's just
Nathan, I have to do something here now.
What it's just juxtaposed, zooming in on stuff. Hashtag shit drinks with you can't see it because it's not flat. So in his way, he's actually detailing how we explain the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. Because when in Muppet Vision, there's only, in the Earth curve maths, one reason that you can't see New York from Ireland. Well, the only reason is because Earth curve blocks your view. But he's just literally detailed how zooming in on stuff isn't capable at a greater distance. Why? because it's not flat. Hold on, how's that got anything to do with things getting smaller or bigger when you zoom in? It doesn't. But that's what Earth curve maths does. It takes the effect of things disappearing into the distance and claims that that's Earth curve blocking them.
But isn't he claiming the opposite now though? Because did it before? Wasn't he complaining that flat earthers say, "Oh, you just have to zoom in," right? Meaning you can zoom in on something that the flat earthers are supposing that you shouldn't be able to see because it's too far, quote unquote. But now he's saying that you can't see America from England because it's not flat.
Yeah, it's an incomplete argument. His full argument would be, if he wasn't a complete numpty and understood his own claim, that if the Earth was a sphere radius 3959, then every distance to horizon to block boats and buildings could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, boats and buildings get blocked. Flat Earthers retort by saying, no, they're not being blocked. I can just zoom in and it's all still there. However, if I extend the distance of my argumentation from a boat and building to 6,000 miles, then you can't see it, and the reason is because it's not flat. That's his actual argument.
Just as one reference, when I look out over the ocean to England and I don't see it, it's because the ocean's not level. Is that what he's trying to tell us?
Yes. It's the only reason in the Earth curve maths that you can't see New York from Ireland is because there's a physical geometric sphere edge horizon at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, blocking your view.
Yeah. Not because it's just too far away.
Is the surface...
Sorry, John.
Go on, John.
Level or curving? Is the sea level or is it curving in that mathematics?
The sea is level. The surface level is sea level as a mean average. And that is not curving. No, that is level. In this depiction for Al-Biruni on screen now, it has that depiction for Al-Biruni's eye level, but he would have previously got the H value from measuring the surface level beneath the mountain.
Can I just point out two things? He basically attacked super zooming cameras, and then he used super zooming telescopes, right? So the standard he attacked is the standard he used, number one. Tent Man sent me a video of this NASA guy with this 5-foot-long telescope camera thing, and he was supposed to be zooming into the moon. And I have a 300 euro camera, and I can zoom in better and further and clearer to the moon than whatever the hell this thing was, right? So super zoom cameras they do have a relevance, right? There's not going to say that they're useless or whatever, but this guy, I don't know what, I mean.
I know what you mean. He attacked it and then used it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I said.
Yeah.
That's what I meant when I was saying that. Like, the flat earthers use it as a proof and you attack that, but the incapability of zooming into America, you use that as a proof that it's not flat.
Well, just so he knows, you can see England from Ireland and Ireland from England, and you can see France from England. I don't know if you can see France, if England from France, I'm sure you can. But
yeah, they see the United States though.
Yeah, but I mean, well, you know what I mean? You can't. I mean, what can you do? But he's back to claiming a level curve.
This reminds me of, this is a cow. This is a cow, that segment. Remember that?
But it's true though. Nathan's right. This is the exact perspective hijacking bullshit they do. Because like literally he didn't say anything about it being pretty damn far away between freaking America and England. No. The only reason that we can't see it is because we're on a ball.
Well, let me just throw something at you, right?
What's up,
if you put your eye line at the water line, right, then something, or even if you don't, you can do it from just standing at whatever height above, 6 foot above the water line. Something of 6 foot height off of the water line, right, becomes too small for the human eye to see at 3 miles. Now, if you have your eye at the waterline and that 6 foot high thing goes 3 miles away on their geometric globe that they don't have, it also disappears, right? So they're just hijacking. You know, that's a known thing, right? They're just constantly hijacking perspectives. But what they've started doing some while back, started with Walter Bislin, and now as well Metabunker at it, is they're giving angular sizes after things have gone over the Earth curve. So Metabunk will give you the angular size of the object after it's gone over Earth curve and the angular size of the hidden amount. Right? That's what they're doing. So they're adding in perspective now after Earth curve. That's what they're at.
Yeah,
Just so
but you know where this is going. If, okay, there's a big if you could see America from England, they're going to say refraction because the Atlantic Ocean is behind America now. It's refraction.
Yep. They would give you a reason why you can see it, but because you can't see it, they're using it as a proof of their claim. Nonsense. Shit shrinks, guys. Hashtag shit shrinks.
What's with the dead air? Is it time to round out?
No, I thought you were playing more of the video. We're waiting for you to press play.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
This idea that there's this big conspiracy, like, so I haven't even talked about the flat Earth and the reason why they think it exists yet. The big idea that there's this conspiracy that the government or the NASA are trying to hide the shape of the Earth from us.
No, they measure it flat too.
Is completely stupid.
I agree. Yeah, they're not hiding the fact that they measure it flat and train their pilots as it being flat, because that's how it's measured and that's how it's navigated.
Because there's no incentive, really. Like, they always talk...
Oh, the incentive to get you to reify this ball Earth model. Oh, yeah, there absolutely is. That's a control mechanism.
Talk about how... So, they think that there's a flat Earth and that around the edge of the entire, like, disk...
Do we? No, the numpty conspiratards think that, not us.
Is Antarctica. And there's
No, we don't think that. We don't claim that. We don't say that. We know that there's models that have been derived in the case of the Azimuthal, if I could say it, Azimuthal equidistant projection that's North Pole centric. It places Antarctica as a perceivable ice wall around that projection. That's a map projection, though. Now, there's idiots on the flat Earth side who also reify map projections, but that doesn't make them any different to globe believers who have reified a model that has been derived from flat plane measurements into a globe for them to reify them standing on it. There's no difference. Both flat earthers and globeds are numpties in that regard. Yes, you're right.
There's an ice wall,
I think
and on
he's
the other side...
the flat Earth globe map.
The flat Earth globe map, yeah, that's what you could call it. I mean, in terms of the projection, I'm not 100% sure, but I can only assume that it's come from flat Earth angle measurements to Polaris utilizing the celestial sphere over a flat plane, and then that's got a antipodal south hemisphere of the heavens sandwiched underneath it to then transpose out a ball Earth from the two based on the angles that you measure out from each plane. Then you take that map and convert it. I don't know how you get to that. That's the bit I don't know. So where you were doing the transverse Mercator, you then put a cylinder around that ball that you made and then project out the points out onto a line that at that point is circular in terms of the tube that it's in. So it can be rolled out flat with a crisscross normal up and down grid on it. But when you go from the globe to azimuthal equidistant projection, it's a very different process. Now, I did about 8 or probably maybe 9 years ago now. One of the very first things I did with Martin Liedtke was look at the process that they use, and you don't actually have to project it out North Pole centric. You can actually project it out from any point. So if you look as an example on JFK's Air Force One, he had, I think it's a Texas centric equidistant projection based on the same process, like plastered on the back wall of the center section of Air Force One. So it's like a massive imposed map. If you imagine a 747 with half of it being a one floor level, then you've got one half semicircle wall. It's more like egg-shaped, but you know what I mean. That's got a whole map on it. And that was, like I say, a Texas-centric azimuthal equidistant projection. But I don't know how they go from globe, because it is a globe projection, to the grid being from the center out, because that's how that map works. I couldn't regurgitate it now
because
it's so long
that's
ago.
how it's measured. That's how it's measured. So all the measurements start north of the equator from the GP point of Polaris out from that. So that's it. All they're doing when they create an AE map, all they're doing is showing the latitude and longitude grid in its correct format, and they're putting the stretching. They're taking a globe map, let's just say, right, and putting it underneath a correct latitude and longitude grid. So the Gleason's map, for instance, the grid is correct, 100 million%, but the projection underneath it is incorrect. Because
Okay,
what they have to do, they just go on, Nathan, you're saying something.
No, I'm saying I don't. I say I kind of follow that, which means I don't.
Yeah, we don't have to go hooked up on it. It's just that basically the Gleason's map is our projection or calculator, or the AE projection is, they're both flat out globe maps. The map is a globe, but the grid is correct. It's flat. That's how the grid is supposed to be.
Sure, but the reason I'm hesitating and saying I kind of understand that meaning I don't is because there's a shift between those two projections, because one's solar centric and the other's Polaris centric for the grid. So when we last discussed this, it was only a couple of days ago, if you remember, we were saying, well, that's probably why, or is why, there's a discrepancy when you look at something like time and date, because time and date is based on the Gleasons. That's where it gives you, but it's essentially a sun tracking projection, isn't it?
Well, they treat the latitude lines, circles of latitude, as if they're angles that the sun is shining on.
Right.
If you understand what I mean.
No, I do exactly. I understand that bit, but what I don't get, this is the bit I'm trying to get you to hopefully tell me, is where that projection shift comes. So if you've taken flat and then projected out based on the angles to the stars to give you the globe, to then project onto something that's azimuthal, then how does... That's the bit that I don't understand. How do you go from... Because it's still got the Polaris grid, but you're saying it's not, it's for the sun. Now, I understand how that would give you a discrepancy. I just don't know how you get from one to the next.
Well, it's not. It's for Polaris. Like the latitude and longitude grid is purely based off of the GP point of Polaris. So my just 1 second, maybe do it.
Okay.
My coordinates is based off of my position in relation to the GP point of Polaris. What they did is when they took that latitude and longitude grid and they turned it into a sphere, right, and they then had it rotating and orbiting the sun, what they did is they turned those the latitude and longitude grid into being more connected to the sun than to Polaris, when it actually has nothing to do with the sun.
Is this why the original globe projection only works at the vernal equinox in terms of time? Is that what 10th details?
Well, yeah, it only works at the vernal equinox because they can't add in the tilt. The tilt is what they have to add in for their solar system model. Their analema requires the tilt, but they can't be adding that in because it's unrealistic.
But they have. That's what I'm saying. That's why I still don't understand. If they can't add it in, how have they to induce the error?
It was only added in by Kepler because he needed to back engineer the observations we actually see. They can't do it in astronomy. They can't. That's why they have to use the equatorial plane, and that plane extends out into the celestial plane. That's why they have to use that, which gives them a much huger plane. They're using a massive plane for astronomy.
Right,
they can't use the tilt in astronomy.
But the grid, in terms of the circles that are coming off from Polaris, translatable to that plane, then has to be converted to a solar-based system. Now, are you saying that the introduction of ellipses by Kepler and tilt is what causes the error to then give you a Gleason's map that's supposed to be solar-centric and give you time based on it, to actually have induced errors because it's Polaris-centric in terms of the grid? I still don't see how they go from one... I just need to go back and have a look at what Martin and I went through. I'm sure within that process of projecting out an azimuthal map or an azimuthal projection, I'd see where the error was induced. It's just I can't remember.
Yeah, I'll make it simple.
Brian,
look at just 1 second.
Hold on, Brian.
Just
I really want to understand this. Let Brian explain it to me, please.
Yeah. Yeah, Chocolate might actually be able to explain this because he's very good at simplifying things. But I'll give my explanation. The latitude and longitude grid on the Gleason's map, ignore the map underneath it, right? And just imagine that with just the grid, right? The sun, right, has a 24-hour cycle, right? And the sun, our time, our correct local time is based off of 15 degrees per hour, right, of sun movement, solar movement, right? But that 15 degrees per hour is an average over the course of a day, right? You won't have the same solar noon every day. It's going to change around, right? But to keep correct local time correct, right, they use the latitude and longitude grid, 15 degrees of longitude per hour, right? So
I get it. So the grid they're measuring with reference to 15 degrees an hour on average for the sun movement to be on top of the Gleason's map when you ignore the fact that the map beneath it hasn't actually got reference to the grid. That's where the error gets induced. I see.
Yeah, it's the grid is based off of Polaris, and the 15 degrees per hour is an average, right? And because we have the solar and sidereal rotation that are very close but not exactly the same. So there's an average of 15 degrees per hour. But solar noon is not going to be the same today for me as it was yesterday, or the same for you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So correct local time is based off of the longitude, latitude and longitude grid, and a 24-hour, right, average, and not based off of the sun. Even though it's from the sun's 24-hour cycle, but they take that 24 hours and that's how it works. But
right. So the amount that it's off by is as much either. When you look at that sort of a kind of figure of 8 shape, what's it called? It's like an analemma or something like that. When they track the sun and put its position next to each other on like a time lapse. Do you know what I mean? That funny shape.
Yeah, the analemma. Yeah, it's
right.
Like an 8 shape. Yes.
Yeah, but if you imagine the window that is within, it's not much. Therefore, you can understand when transposed onto the Gleasons, or for time and date, I assume it's an azimuthal equidistant projection. You're going to be out by only a small factor within that window that you can see down. It's not like it's massively out over the other side of your peripheral view one day, at the end of the season. It's not. It's still within quite a tight window. Therefore, you can put it on and it can pretty much work all the time with the sun on that grid form derived from flat plane measurements to Polaris. So it will always kind of work. The how much it's off is never going to be noticeable unless you do what we did when track the sun and see where it's off.
Well, the globe, you have to remember, rotates at a sidereal rate, which is slightly less than the solar rate. So the sidereal rate is, slightly faster. So a sidereal 24 hours is slightly faster than a solar 24 within 24 hours. So their rotation is based off of sidereal, but they're trying to, how will I explain it? They're trying to base all their sun angles or the latitude and longitude grid off of the sun when it's not. It's actually based off of Polaris.
Gotcha. No, I understand now.
Yeah.
Okay. What does sidereal mean?
It's in time with the rotation of the stars and not the sun. Solar is sun, sidereal is the rotation of the stars.
Okay. Should really know that. Cool. Thank you, Brian.
No worries.
Out of the ice wall, there are loads of other.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chocolate.
No, I just had a question, right? Because you were talking about before how they use the equatorial plane and they extend it out to the celestial sphere, right? So they need this massive plane, right? We've also spoken about their radius and how they unbend the Earth, aka making the Earth bigger, right? So why didn't they just use a bigger radius? right? Maybe it might be a stupid question, but why didn't they just use a bigger radius? Is that because of the discrepancy of what the hell they're trying to explain is going on in the sky, as opposed to this nonsensical ball that we're supposed to be on?
They couldn't, because the latitude and longitude grid only allows for a 3959 statute with mile radius. They had to. They took the latitude and longitude grid and took all the longitude lines and that were deviating out from the center and made them all join underneath. So that meant that they were stuck with a radius that's actually 3,956, I think, is the correct mile. But they say 3959 because they must add in centrifugal force and all this other nonsense because of their claim of rotation. But anyway, long story short,
to answer Chocolate's question, you're saying it's 3959 or 3956 because it has to be, because it's back engineered from a calculation off a flat plane to Polaris. Therefore, you've got a limitation to what the radial ball value can be and have it work to a fashion once you plot the grid onto the ball. Well, once you plot the grid onto the ball, where'd you get the grid from? Well, it's got to match it. It can't not be 3959 or 3956, which is just a slight spanner in the works.
Which is then why they spend so much time changing 3959 to prove 3959.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, they spend so much time doing it to hide the begging the question fallacy, and moreover, which is what Brian's just detailed, hide the fact that it's a derivative of a flat plane measurement in the first instance, and it has to match that measurement when you superimpose the inference of a sphere Earth beneath a measurement that you're actually going to put into practical application. Well, when you put it into practical application, it must be back engineerable so that it functions and match the ball that you've taken by extrapolation to be a ball. Therefore, the value, I used to say it's set in stone. It can't be any other value. So just use a different radius, a la Mr. Sensible. No, you can't. That value is fixed, and it fixes where the hill will be. It's at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, based on your assumption of an R that's been derived from flat plane measurements to Polaris.
Got it.
Can I add something to this?
No.
I'm going to go with no.
I like that. I like the way you do that. All right. So it depends what reference you want to use. If you want to use Earth-based, it's the alt-az coordinate system, altitude azimuth, which is the way the sextant looks at the horizon mirror with the horizon mirror and the altitude of the sun or star above it. And then from north, you do the azimuth, and that's horizontal as well to see your direction on a compass. That's the alt-az. And it's only true for the observer on Earth using the Earth as a reference, because somebody else at a different place on Earth will come up with something different angle and all this. When they go to the vernal equinox, where the Earth is no longer tilting, it allows for the Earth's equator, the equatorial plane, to extend beyond through space, not that it exists the way they say, but all the way to the celestial sphere, the perspective view of the stars. So that makes the reference the sky map. So you're no longer on Earth as the reference. You're using the stars and the sky as the reference. So with that, you have one big disk, and all the stars that are below that disk, you can't see until they move, because the Earth is not rotating. And all the stars you see above that disk is the stars you see. So when Brian says, and we've said as well, that flat Earth angle measurements to Polaris, they're stuck with it. And then underneath that Globerger, they just stick another protractor. That's why 0 is represented at the equator, 0 degrees, because it's a 180, it's flat. And when you use the sky as the map and reference, you're no longer referencing Earth. That's why the guy in New York, Chicago, France, and San Francisco could have one reference, and they all will see the same constellation, because the sky is the reference. to have that happen, you need a flat plane. This is great because RA and declination, the equatorial mountain telescope, and the vernal equinox are saying you have this one big disk that's flat, and anyone on Earth could see the same stars with the same coordinates. Whereas if you do all altitude and azimuth, is based on the person's location on Earth, Earth-centric versus sky-centric reference. So both of them prove a flat Earth because it's all angles, but that's the way that works.
Okay, should we get back to this surface puke regurgitator or what?
I say demolish.
That exist that have like either other civilizations or I guess resources, and they think that the reason why we're lied to and it's all this big conspiracy is because there's shit on those continents that's useful, and they want to keep it from us.
The Feast of Nonsense regurgitation. Again, he's basically debunking Dave Weiss. So Dave Weiss parrots off what the chronological scope or whatever it's called with Admiral Byrd, talking about him discovering resources of great wealth or great worth out in Antarctica. That's been picked up again as it was spoon-fed at the Feast of Nonsense to the conspiratard people who came to Flat Earth because they were given it on auto-suggest by YouTube. They regurgitated it and said, we must find the edge because there's more land beyond Antarctica and Antarctica surrounds us. Yeah, this is all just debunking Dave Weiss and his prepackaged regurgitation of the Feast of Nonsense.
Right. But they put it in a dichotomy of either truth or lies. It's true or false. We're pointing out it's false. We don't have to explain why they're lying. We're not claiming they are. It's wrong.
And I want to add, refractive, I want to apologize for any resistance I might have implied when it comes to your adamant concern for the Feast of Nonsense being removed, because these guys pick their battles, they pick their challenges, and they're resuscitated and they sustain their existence thanks to people like Dave and all of these other frauds who say things that these guys can make YouTubes and try to ridicule Flat Earth. And unfortunately, being that we have the same badge on our chest, it kind of puts us in the same bowl of soup, but he would never dare challenge, come over here with that crap. Just like Nathan said, he doesn't even know the 3959 radius. He's going after these easy targets.
That bowl of soup, metaphorically, has been puked up into by every single person who fed at the Feast of Nonsense, and now we're having it spoon-fed to us by this numpty. Well, that bowl and the ingredients and the people who eat from it are predetermined to be that group. Now, we found ourselves in that group. And you say we wear the same badge? Yeah, we do. That could be a problem, though, couldn't it? Because it seems literally just this show, we've started to distinguish ourselves from flat earthers.
No, this is why I kind of hear what you're saying, Nathan, but I disagree. This is why you have denominations, because a certain faction of that group says, this is what the Bible teaches. And then another faction says, no, this is what the Bible teaches. So they split and go their separate ways because they can't coexist. So if it's happening with the people over the Word of God, let's just change it to this topic now, which is what is this earth? What's it made out of? What do we live on? Does it spin? Doesn't it spin? So then we have the show called Flat Earth Debates. Okay, so where's if you have a claim, you need to have some cowbell. All right, let's see your cowbell. Well, we don't see any cowbell, so come back when you have it. That's our show. The other Feast of Nonsense, so-called flat earthers, they don't care for cowbell because, they can be talking about anything and they get on shows, they get lots of views, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we encounter them, not the anti-flat earthers or the globers. We encounter supposedly people who are on our own side, and we say, where'd you get that claim? Can you back it up? If it's good, we'll use it. But you know what? They can't. We don't use it. They get mad that we call them out. And so we are forming a separation from them. They are not the official spokespeople for all flat earthers. We are not even saying we are. All we're saying is if you got a claim, you need to prove it. We'd like to see it.
And it's necessary. We have to separate us from them because, look, everything David Weiss says comes back to us. There's this idiot. You think he'd break down celestial navigation and what they're saying on Flat Earth Debate. No, he picks a stupid, numpty video and he destroys that, or he tries to destroy that while making confessions. I don't get it.
Well, I would describe it different. I think a better description would be a police force, and David Weiss and them are corrupt cops. Nobody trusts the police force because they've only keep on having to deal with David Weiss and all the other corrupt cops. So no one's going to trust
I love it, Brian.
Yeah, because it's
cops.
Yeah, corrupt cops, because that's what they are. They're corrupt cops, so no one trusts the cops because they're always dealing with the corrupt ones.
And that
Hey,
is
hello,
the best
hello.
description. That is the best description ever, because Bob Nodell, corrupt cop.
Yeah.
Hey, hello, Nathan. Hello, everyone.
Hey,
So
Arthur.
let's just suppose that someone who has never heard about flat Earth on the internet or anywhere, and you tell that person that the Earth is flat. Aren't these the questions which naturally come to a person's mind? Questions like, why can't we see the sun? Because they have an explanation for the same. It goes to the other side of the globe. All of a sudden, you are saying that it is a thing above our flat plane. Then this question naturally arises. Things like, how do seasons happen? And why do boats disappear? All these feast of nonsense questions for which people like David Weiss give an explanation for. So if someone comes to Nathan Oakley's show with the same question, why can't we see the sun? What kind of an answer are you going to offer?
Did I make a claim about it?
Yeah, we
Sorry.
didn't make no claims about the sun. We don't know what it is. What's going on with you, Arthur?
No, I'm
I
just
do.
saying.
That's not the point. Arwin, thank God. Thank you for coming back.
I got Arthur's point.
I understand Arthur's point. I
You
understand.
just answered it.
It invokes questions. Their feast of nonsense invokes questions that shouldn't be that, because the feast of nonsense begs the question that the sun is a particular thing that's a particular height and size, and it does a particular thing above us, when we don't have a clue what it does, or what it is, or how it does what it does. You know, but the seasons are due to the sun cycle, whatever that is. The sun cycle, the seasons seem to follow that. That's all we can say.
Yeah, they do. And that's why we know the circuit of the sun takes a whole year, and it goes to Cancer and to the other. And in the middle is the equator. The Capricorn is the other. And the Analema. I mean, every year you could follow the sun. It's higher in the sky, and it's lower in the sky, then it's higher in the sky, and it's lower. And it's always that same amount. Okay. So in winter, we have shorter days. Summer, we have longer days. And guess what? The plants like it when the sun's out longer and the air warms up and things grow in that environment. Much better than the winter time, unless you have a greenhouse, of course. So, what does that prove? That doesn't prove a globe. It just proves the sun is moving.
I would distinguish between the curiosity of the conversation and the feast of nonsense, right? Because I think what you guys said, the feast of nonsense creates these questions. And I would say, no, I think it's, in just my opinion, I think it's the conversation and the topic alone that creates these questions, right? Because some of these questions are things that some of us have thought of when we were kids, right? Now, the feast of nonsense are the certain directions or the certain answers that you would have or try to come up with. Like those conversations would end up in the feast of nonsense, but I don't think it starts there, right? I think it's just the natural curiosity of this topic.
They had the answers on a ball.
Yeah.
The answers are taken away. And now we have a flat earther over here just making baseless assertion answers to these questions they don't know the answer to. They're just making shit up.
Exactly. They're only asking those questions, which you put down to curiosity, because formerly the answers to those questions were given, but only because there was a requirement for them to be questioned in the first place based on a ball being your belief. For example, why aren't we flying off the ball? Well, gravity. Therefore, asking a flat earther why up is up and down is down.
When they ask the question, how do you explain the seasons, what they don't realize, and this is something I've banged on about since back in, I don't know how many years ago, was that Kepler took the original known sun cycle that was known in astrology, because he was an astrologer. That's how he learned astronomy. He learned it through astrology. He took that cycle and he back engineered it into the Copernican model. That's what he did. He amalgamated with the Copernican model. So when they say, how do you explain the seasons? Exactly the same as you do, except for the sun is doing the movement and not the earth. And the earth is not a globe. It's the ye hijacked what was the original sun cycle and turned it into your analema, which it isn't. It has nothing to do with a globe. But that's where they got their 23.4 degree tilt, all this nonsense. That's all, and the 3 million mile difference between their summer and winter in the north. That's all based around Kepler's mathematics of having to back engineer it into the Copernican model of a solar system. So where did ye get your? How do you explain seasons? Exactly the same as ye, with the exception of we're not doing the moving; the sun is.
Exactly.
Right.
And how many times? Go on, John.
I was just going to say their Kepler elements that they use for that are all flat plane elements.
For sure. For sure. But how many times do we have to hear Adam Meekin tell us he's not going to fall for the same trick that got him to believe the nonsense of the globe? He wants the claims backed up. He's not going to just take any ordinary thing. I mean, don't we all feel the same way?
Depends who you ask.
Yeah, well, let me just add a little bit more, right? I don't know what the sun is, right? I don't know how it does what it does. But if you look at the Gleason's map, and this is what the Gleason's calculator, I should say, or projection, because it's not a map, right? It's actually a calculator. It shows that on the 21st of December, that the sun doesn't light up any further than 80 degrees south, according to Gleason, right? I don't know, according to Gleason. But within the original sun cycle, it was described as the sun is highest in the sky in the summer, in the northern summer, and moving at its slowest rate and making its tightest circle. Whereas that's on the 21st of June. On the 21st of December, the sun is lowest or closest to the earth. This is how it used to be described. It's moving at its fastest rate and making its biggest circle, right? Now, if you take a flashlight and you raise it up point it at a table and or a floor and you raise it up, it spreads out the light more, right? When you bring it in closer, the light concentrates more in one area, right? So if the sun, I don't know if it is, but if the sun is lower to actually closer in whatever the sun is, closer to the earth in the southern summer, then it would make sense that it would, because according to the Gleason's map, if we look at the two portions at the bottom, the light from the sun covers a smaller area during the southern summer. So it would make sense in that way. But how do you,
can I ask you a question?
The problem is, what do you do with that? Go on.
Well, to 10th man's point of having evidence, do you know of any evidence or can you confirm evidence of the sun's angular size actually being larger in the summer? Or is that just a belief that we believe is known?
Well, I've seen photographs of comparison. Now, the comparison photographs I've seen show the sun to have a slightly larger angular size in the summer, in the southern summer than in the northern summer. Like you will see with the moon, where some moons will have a slightly, like a super moon, I think it is, or whatever, has a bigger angular size than some of the other moons. Right. So supposedly, yeah, that does happen. That in the southern summer, the sun has, on the 21st of December, the sun has a larger angular size for an observer than on the 21st of June. Supposedly, I haven't done it. And the same happens with the moon, supposedly.
So, depending upon its elevation angle, the sun apparent size, like, what's it matter?
I'm still trying to think about what the question is. I mean, we're not making any claims about the sun, but if you want to say what the altitude is above the horizon, you need a flat Earth.
Well, if you take Kepler, why did Kepler have to make... See, the thing about it is that I thought about all this before. Why did Kepler have to put the globe out 3 million miles closer? Well, it is now. It may not have been 3 million when he first did it, but now because of the distance to the sun within their model these days, the sun is 3 million miles, or the Earth globe Earth is 3 million miles closer to the sun in the southern summer, right? And it moves past the sun faster in the southern summer. This is there, right? But would it not make sense that what's been back engineered there is the angular, because it's all of their distances, all this nonsense about distance and all that about the sun, it's all back engineering nonsense from the angular size. So would it not make sense that in the southern summer that there is a bigger angular size to the sun, and that's why Kepler had to add in a globe being closer to it, which would give it a bigger angular size? Because I guarantee you, mathematically, it all works out. Because I thought years ago I did a presentation on it.
But it only works out from a flat plane. You have to put a line through the celestial sphere and then expand it out infinitely, to do that, but still flat plane.
But I'm just talking. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I'm just talking about Kepler. This is what Kepler had to do. See, Kepler had to take what we actually observe and make that work for a globe that's rotating at a sidereal rate, not a solar rate, but orbiting a sun in a solar system. And that's why there's an offset elliptical orbit, why there's a 23.4 degree tilt, both north and south, on the globe, and why the globe is closer and further throughout the year to their heliocentric sun. It's all based off of him having to take the actual observation. So that lends credence that the sun does have a larger angular size in the southern summer than in the northern summer.
Well, NASA will tell you that all the calculations, everything is based on flat planes. So they're not putting a globe in there with the descriptions. I don't know where their model would be at in there. I don't understand the argument. No, Kepler didn't either.
Well, he did, and that's why they have a 23.4 degree tilt. He made it work mathematically.
So he had to add the tilt to compensate for the mileage of the globe from the sun, because to explain the seasons, so that it makes sense why we can get 3 million miles closer to the thing that's supposedly giving us heat, but in the north you could have 7 feet of snow. But then when we move 3 million miles further away, it gets hotter.
Well,
they had to explain that shit.
Well, the distance, the 3 million miles distance
from a globe.
Yeah, but the 3 million miles distance within, what's this, just on Kepler, the 3 million miles distance is based off of the fact that in the summer, in the southern summer, the sun has from what I could find out, does definitely have a larger angular size than in the northern summer. So he had to make the globe out closer to the sun to give it that larger angular size.
But he wasn't making the globe Earth closer or further. He was making the plane of reference closer or further away. He wasn't. There was no globe.
Yeah, but you have to look. I'm not arguing with you about that. I'm talking about what Kepler did and the current claims and why the globe's analemma is as it is. So you're preaching to the converted when you're telling me they were using a flat plane.
right? I can cite NASA and how they explain it and all the elements of the orbital mechanics that we're speaking about, including the Keplerian elements that make up parts of those elements, are all based on a flat plane. So
yeah, but it
there's
all
no
started
globe.
with Kepler. Everything started with Kepler. That all started with him.
There was no globe.
Yeah, no globe.
But
There was no globe. No, Kepler basically created. Kepler did create the he did create the heliocentric model, but he basically created the globe. Regardless of what other ideas people had before him, what we have now today is directly due to Kepler. The heliocentric belief.
Sorry, Brian, but you see this whole sidebar I avoid. I'm with John here. Here's why. This is flat Earth debates, not sun debates. I don't know what the sun is. I don't know how it exactly does what it does, other than what I could observe. But I can't go test that. That's beyond my capabilities. But I am on this Earth. And so this is why this is flat Earth debate. So no matter what the sun does or doesn't do, you need a flat Earth. So what's the point?
Yeah, but
It's turned into a story.
You can debate the sun on my channel.
But
it's turned into a just so story debate. That's what it's turned into. There's a resurgence of giving explanations, right? I'm seeing this throughout not only the community, just running around recently, because it's always been there. Evotard started doing it way before Baltards did. But they ask you for explanations. That means they're asking you for just so stories to compete with their just so stories. And a lot of flat earthers are compelled to give an answer to something that they didn't make any claims for. I've spoke about this for years, and it's like I said, it seems to be making a resurgence. It's fine to talk about this stuff amongst ourselves, but you ain't friggin' validating shit. Sunshine.
No, I agree with that. But when I'm speaking about Kepler and the analemma, like I'm not making any personal claims. I'm just speaking about what he had to do to come up with his analemma and what the observations that he needed to hijack to come up with it. So, like, I understand you are correct. Don't be giving explanations, but I'm not giving any explanation. I'm just speaking about what he had to do. We all observe the sun do the same thing year in, year out. And he had to take those observations and make it work within the heliocentric globe model. That's what he had to do. So you don't have to make a claim. You just have to point out what Kepler had to do. The observations don't change. That won't change the observations because they had to match those observations.
What heliocentric globe model?
The one that the whole world thinks they live in and on. That one.
You mean the one that we spent 2 hours on yesterday that doesn't exist?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the belief exists.
Yeah, as I was trying to say to QE a couple of minutes ago, this is all Brian's fault.
But has anyone seen this or heard this? People asking for explanation. Well, what's your explanation? I'll tell you what. Unless you make a claim for it, then you don't have to explain shit, number one. Number two, the anti-flat earthers and the globers are stuck because they have their explanations given to them. There is no wiggle room. It's established. So they have to follow the company line. And they're going to follow the company line right to the diving board, right to the plank. It's going to cut them off at the knees.
Well, that's why I asked Flat Arthur what's wrong with him. Because I don't have to give
Nothing's
him
wrong with me. So what? From
you
what I
said
understand,
what's wrong with giving them answers. I know I heard you say that.
Okay. So from what I understand, I will continue with my previous example that a glober comes to Nathan Oakley and asks these feast of nonsense questions. Nathan Oakley says, I do not make a claim about it, so I do not have to explain, just like QE just reiterated now. Now that same glober goes to Eric Dubé and David Weiss and gets all his answers and becomes a flat earther. And then he comes back to Nathan Oakley with his answers, which Nathan Oakley did not have. And then he gets the reality check. So from what I understand, Nathan was also referring to the same thing in about 1 hour mark when he said that here we are the niche of the niche. 1% of the 100% of flat earthers. So by doing that, Nathan, aren't you limiting your reach to a large extent?
Yeah, I mean, it would be easier and far more profitable to not be hyper specific. But that's, for me, when I assess what I'm doing here on YouTube, the antithesis of why I picked the subject. I picked the subject so I could be hyper specific because I saw no end of constant things to discuss with flat Earth, specifically about the nature of Earth being flat. I'll never run out of things to talk about. So, yeah, being hyper specific does limit the amount of people. But from the off, we're standing in opposition to a world that thinks they're on a globe. So that doesn't ultimately seem like a massive downside in that regard. Because, yeah, we're standing in opposition to everybody anyway.
And what about all these, since you were mentioning all these other conspiracies, and these kind of people are supposed to be flat earthers, people like who believe in 9/11 and Illuminati and all these things, right? But how long are you going to continue with flat earth only? Are you going to ever move on or stick to flat earth?
I'm
And
happy
if
sticking to
you
flat
are
Earth just
sticking,
because, as I just said, it's an evergreen subject. Do you know what I mean by evergreen subject?
Yep.
Yep, that's it. It's an evergreen subject. I don't need to move on. It's like computers. There'll always be a new piece of technology to talk about, therefore evergreen subject. There'll always be another thing. Well, we're currently on the vibe of all roads lead to a flat Earth. You know what I mean? We could discuss anything and it would relate directly to the subject matter. But as we do so, we do get refined. But I always lean back on what QE says. We don't train to time, we train to standards. Well, our standards are high. Does that alienate a certain person from listening to us? Yeah, but we also do try and keep it occasionally to a level that we do try and dumb it down occasionally. We make some efforts to involve everybody, but you just can't. That's why we discussed Rachie. No matter what I did or what I said to her in that chat, it was 2 and 2 was not making 4 for her. Now, if that is the case, what are you going to do? She's got complicated questions that she wants to ask in this subject. Well, the complicated answers aren't being understood. What can I do at that point?
Your description.
Hey, have a nice day. Sorry, Ken.
Yeah, fight or flight. Don't pick don't pick fight, because what's the point? You're probably going to lose. It'll probably leave you stressed. That's what she's describing. Okay, well, use your other option. Flight. Run away to the globe again. Just don't worry about it. Don't worry about this flat Earth stuff.
It may be an evergreen.
Right.
It may be an evergreen subject, which it is, and that's the main part of the show, Flat Earth Debates, appropriately titled. But you get more than that. You get how to debate lessons, number one. You get an understanding of what fallacious reasoning is, number two. You put those two together and you figure out how to reason in logic based on a statement, whether true or false. We are learning so many things here more than just flat Earth debate. So this show is going to continue because that one topic allows these other lessons to be learned, which is very important in communication. I'll give you an example. So my friends and kids who are flat earthers, when they talk to their family and friends, which obviously I'm not there, they say, well, you know what? I know someone, or if it's my kids, you know, my father spent 5-6 years studying this. He'd love to talk to you. No one wants to come and talk to me. They're all afraid. I wonder why.
Because you have the truth. I just want to say something real quick. Hold on. You know something? If teachers, when I went to school, if they were more like Nathan and Keely, perhaps I would have stood. Because the way they teach, it's very, very easy to comprehend, let's just say. I was just thinking about that the other day.
Well, what I found interesting the past year is the name of the show, Flat Earth Debate, is almost like a housekeeping question. And so, because this topic is not debatable. There is no debate. It is flat. But to put debate on it, it entices people to what is subject, thinking that they can argue about it. It's
Wait a Ferrari to
I think
show.
it's interesting.
What? Thanks, Neil. That really made
Well, Lamborghini.
Like,
He just Lamborghini to show.
He said Ferrari, not Arwen.
No, I said Ferrari, but I meant Lamborghini.
I know,
He
but
just took a
Arwen thought you
Lamborghini
said
to
his
outside
name.
of debate. Oh, yeah.
I'll take a Bugatti.
Ferrari.
You'll take a Bugatti.
A Bugatti.
Bugatti.
Bugatti. So what else are we going to explain? Have you guys been noticing that? Or is it just me?
I've
No,
noticed
so-
that.
Hold on, sounds like a new discussion point. Noticing what?
My favorite explanation is, well, how do you explain down? I love that.
Explain explanations.
Yeah, explain. Give me your explanation for this and that. Right? It's not a new thing. Like I said, it's been going. Evotard started it a long time ago. I caught on to it real quick and just busted the shit out of them. But I've been noticing a resurgence in that, and not only from globetards and anti-flat earthers, but also flat earthers. Well, just wait a second. I can explain. No, you can't. And even if you could, we would, unless you have validation for it. We don't give a shit. It's a just so story. I can give you an explanation too. If you walk down to the village idiot, he's going to give you an explanation also, right? What is that explanation worth? Not much.
Shit.
Right?
Which it does too.
Validated in some way, your explanation is frigging worthless.
That's what Witsit does too. Witsit says the same thing.
That's
Let me
one
explain.
of the problems coming from the globe, right? Because the globe, quote unquote, tries to explain everything, even the things that aren't explainable, which is why they'll do stupid things like tell you, like name an eclipse, the impossible eclipse, even though it's happening, right? They do dumb shit like that because they have all these explanations that whether they work or not, they're there, right? And that's what annoys.
Okay, hold on. Here's asked an interesting question that's not getting answered, which I'm going to try and attempt to do. Right, you're saying, what value does it have when you go and get your explanation from the village idiot? And let's juxtapose that with David Weiss being the village idiot in the example, coming up with ad hoc explanations for whatever. Okay, well, what's the value? Well, to us, none. But they are doing it, and there is a value to somebody somewhere along the line for them to be doing it. For them to be put in the position by way of Feast of Nonsense to regurgitate this stuff, it must be of advantage to someone for them to bother to prepare the Feast of Nonsense. Okay, well, who's it of advantage to? Well, for the person that's got a truth that needs to be hidden, in this case, specifically, Flat Earth. Well, as we discussed earlier, when I said we're not in the right group, we're in a group that's supposed to be conspiratards, aren't we? Well, that's why, because the advantage of having what I called conspiratards disseminate your truth that you don't want anyone to know about is people immediately discredit the person. So if you can get the village idiot to explain that 3,000% APR is absolutely horrendous, you don't want to be taking up that interest rate, what's that? It's being told to me that I shouldn't do it by the village idiot. Well, that's advantageous to anybody who's selling a 3,000% interest rate, isn't it? Do you see what I'm saying?
The consensus to destroy the false dichotomy. So they try to explain everything down with incoherent dielectric acceleration. Then you put that up in false dichotomy with gravity, and Bob your uncle, gravity is going to beat that crap every time.
So you want the person that's putting up the other side of your false dichotomy argument to be easily defeatable and easily discreditable, so that when they do put the argument that you've given them to give anyway, they'll perform as expected.
Well, the same is true of the upward rising
I can kind of see
force of gravity too. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I could kind of see why someone would want to have explanations for everything, because I used to get all these questions, talking to people where I used to work, and they would always have the questions afterwards, right? Now, the thing they would get annoyed at is that there are obviously things I'm going to tell you if I know that I could prove for a fact. But then there are other things that you're going to ask me that I'm just going to say I don't know or don't have an explanation, and am not obligated to give you one, because I didn't give you the original story in the first place that made you think otherwise, right? And people get annoyed with that. And I'm okay with people getting annoyed with that, because I'm not going to sit here and make up a story to replace the one that I just took away from you. I'm not going to do that.
I know
You don't
exactly
have
what
to,
you
though.
mean, Chocolate. I know
Yeah.
exactly what you mean, and I also face the same thing. I know a person who is on the fence because he cannot explain sunsets and sunrises. That's what is stopping him from becoming a flat earther.
Yeah, and I've been literally told I've literally been told, yeah, I can't mess with anything that you're saying if you can't tell me how it actually works.
Well, hold
They
on.
shouldn't.
But see, can
But
I
they
just
should. Hold on. Let me just add to that. Hold on.
explanation?
Let me just add to that. They shouldn't become flat earthers based on you being able to give them an explanation, but that's how they want to become flat earthers. So you take away my explanation for sunsets and sunrises. If you can give me a now new explanation, I will become part of your group. All right. So just seeking consensus. No, the reason you should become a flat earther is because you know it's flat. Now you need to find out what it is that makes you know that, but that's the only standard.
Exactly.
We've transcended that, though. We can point out how their explanations require a flat too now.
True, but most normies are definitely not ready for that. Like you said, we've transcended that. Most normies aren't even ready for that. They still have to.
That's not your problem, though.
Yeah, no, I know.
That's not your problem.
That's why they would get annoyed. Because I would sit there and laugh.
Well, wasn't there a
let me
mantra?
just say that.
Wasn't there a mantra out there that said, how did it go? Falsification is independent of replacement.
Yeah.
I used to.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, I did too. Sorry, Brian. Good.
No, I'm just saying that
What I'm saying, though, is
1 second. See this nonsense where someone says to you, how do you explain a sunset? I explain it exactly the same way as it is explained on your model, right? That's my answer to them. And I've done this. It's not, yeah, right. There, right. Leave me finished, right? Because if you're going to jump in every time I have to reference the globe, if someone's going to jump in and say the globe doesn't exist, there's no point. Because if I can't reference the globe, then I can't speak in here.
Now, globe model.
Whichever, I have to reference it. If every time I'm going to say globe model, there's going to be someone.
And then there's also the other one, which is that they want, like NASA wants funding. So,
hang on, Nathan. Right, leave me finish what I'm saying first. Right, their claim, right. This is official, that the sun at the horizon is not actually the sun, right? In the morning and the evening, it's the sun mirage. And their claim is that the horizon is not a physical location, it's a refracted position. That means it's the meeting of two optical phenomena. And that's the exact thing that I say to them. And they have nothing. So it's not a physical sun going down behind the physical horizon, even within the official claims, when you amalgamate them. That's not what they're claiming. Because that's not what's happening. They have to hijack reality, which they do, and then ask you, how do you explain it? After they've hijacked the reality of it. But they've, in the small print, they're not telling you that within their hijack, they're after making the sun a mirage, right? Because that's the only way they can describe it, right? In the evening time and in the morning time. And the horizon is also an optical phenomenon. So it's the meeting of two optical phenomena. That's how I explain it.
Right, the only thing I'm saying, though, about the saying globe model is that at that moment you're invoking a dichotomy. where none exists. There's no globe model, but they have a bunch of different flat Earth models.
Yeah,
I've
okay.
I've not seen a globe model, but
If I'm someone new who's listening, and how do I? Well, you see, if we come up with a different term to refer to what the average person knows as the globe model, then someone listening in is not going to know what the hell we're talking about.
Well, show them how the claim is bunk in the first place. Show them how the first explanation is a just so story, because you're going to overextend yourself, because they're going to come back and say, if they're smart, if it were me, I would say, can you validate what you just told me? Yeah? You can't. It makes sense. That's it. But there's a lot of things that make sense that aren't actually true. Follow?
But I do follow, but you have to remember, they have to know what you're talking about first before they could even join in on the conversation.
Yeah. And
if they don't understand what you're talking about, because you're referring to what they know as the globe model, and you're referring to it in a different manner, in a more correct manner, but that's totally going over their heads, they're not going to know what you're talking about.
Well, they shouldn't ask the question in the first place.
But that's what Kiwi's doing. That's what Kiwi and John are saying.
Go on.
That's what Kiwi and John are saying. You could ask the question why they have that opinion, and then that's a way of leading them to it required a flat Earth to even get there. But you got to do it by asking questions. People say too much versus ask questions, because the average guy's going to say, "Well, that's what they told me in science class," or "That's what they told me." And say, "Well, official NASA citations say you need a flat plane for that." Now, does that make any sense to you? Leave that seed of doubt. You don't have to win the dang argument in one meeting.
Yeah, but if they ask you to, or they request an explanation for sunrises and sunsets, well, I never made a claim for it, number one. Number two, it sounds like you've got an explanation in the hopper. So can we get your explanation first? And then with that explanation, we'd like some validation. How about that?
Precisely. No, precisely.
Yes, exactly. That's how it should pad out. But Brian wants to flex his muscles in terms of his exemplary understanding of their heliocentric nonsense as anti-flat earthers.
Yeah. Well, there's a little bit more there than
I had a dude ask me. Ask me once. So what's the sunset? What's the sun doing? I just asked him, what does the sun look like it's doing? He says it's moving away from us in the sky, just moving in the sky. And I just looked at him and I said, okay, well, there you go. I don't have any claim beyond that. That's.
I would ask them, are you thinking the elevation angle is decreasing to the point it goes behind the horizon?
You're falling into the trap.
Are they going to say no to that?
You're all falling in the trap, man.
I'm not falling in the trap.
If you get a wise ass like me who comes along, I'm going to ask you to validate that shit. Good luck.
You want me to validate that the elevation angle is changing through the day? Yeah, I can do that.
No, I'm not asking you for that.
What are you asking me for?
I'm asking you to show how the sun rises and the question is even malformed, because the sun doesn't ever rise or set anywhere, because it's just a rhetorical device. So you're chasing.
And I said, no, I said in response, so you're asking me why the elevation angle of the sun changes until it seems to disappear. I rephrased the question back to them to get an understanding.
You could do it that way and then head back to the elevation angles. That would be okay, because you got evidence for that. That's fine.
Yeah, well, that's
and
like
although that's a devastating question, because that's a devastating question. Just saying elevation angle will assert that it's obviously a flat Earth you needed for that, but
yeah,
they're not going to know that.
Right. This is that's
the problem.
Well, no. What we're discussing is the refinement of the paraphrasing back to somebody who starts to reverse the burden and say, well, how do you explain sunrises? No, sounds like you've got a claim. I'm not claiming anything about them. But did you have a claim? That's the first step, right? Then we're on to, once they've got that in their mind that they're making the positive claim, if they're insistent and they're saying, well, the sun rises and the sun sets and that proves a ball, you would paraphrase back to them, okay, so you're saying the elevation angle measurement of the sun as it decreases towards the horizon or recedes towards the horizon to then appear no more is an proof of a globe? Because that requires a flat plane. In other words, it's the refinement of how you get them onto the assertion of what they're claiming, a recession in the elevation angle, and how that is not a globe proof.
Well, that's why I do what I did with them. Just give me a second. That's why I go straight to what the actual official claim is, which is that in the morning at the horizon and in the evening at the horizon, we're not actually seeing the sun. It's called the sun mirage, and the horizon is not geometric. So what they want to do is have me try and come up with some ad hoc BS, and then they jump in with a physical sun going down behind a physical horizon. Whereas I give them the exact same thing that is officially claimed. It's just in the small print. That's the difference. And they got nowhere to go.
Black
so
Swan,
two optical
baby.
phenomena meeting.
Black Swan time.
Yeah, but see this, but it's Black Swan is already in there. That's the point. There's two optical phenomena meeting. That's the point.
Right, but
I would just say, just 1 second. I want you to understand this. I want you to get this. Their official claim is the meeting of two optical phenomena, not a physical sun going down behind a physical horizon. So then the person is stuck, because I've done this umpteen times now with the ballers. They have nowhere to go. They have to red herring with a different question because they got nothing. So I've taken away that's what's supposed to be their biggest flat earth destruction by using their very own official claim.
NASA is pretending that it's a globe.
Really, Nathan?
NASA's not pretending it's a globe. They're using a plane of reference. I don't know where this guy's getting at.
It's a subtle way to say, let's move on.
I know what he's doing. And then when Brian talks, he turns it on just for a second.
Like what I was going to say, though, is there's two types of ways you can approach it. There's the sword of truth that cuts both ways, and when somebody makes a positive claim, you can just destroy it, right? And then you can have the armor of God, where you know the truth, and within their question, see it, and just reverse it on them. So, I mean, it's 6 1/2 dozen of the other. I mean, it doesn't, as long as you aren't going off and making claims you can't back up. You know, it's really what matters.
Right.
My
but
way,
that is
you will
easier.
never get compromised.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, but that is a lot easier. And the people disseminating that information and the people lapping it up, the path is easier. So that's the path of least resistance, and that's the path people take. So yes, you can have the discipline, but it takes work to get to that point. And most people aren't willing to do it.
Q, you were saying?
I said my way will never get you compromised.
Yeah, I like the Black Swan here because it's easy to do. When the sun disappears and the clouds are disappearing, and basically just before they disappear, they're touching the horizon in our perspective view as we look out. So, Mr. Baller, is that physical Earth curve that's going over? Yes, that's geometric horizons going over. Great. Now you just tell him his claims in the Black Swan and show that the oil platforms are known distances. They serve as markers. And it should be 1.22 miles at 1 foot high. And it's well beyond 9.41. So you don't have that geometric physical horizon that you claimed made the sun go away or the clouds go away. Because you know over there, if you were over there, the sun would still be above you and the clouds would be 10, 15,000 feet above you as well. You know that. Stuff shrinks.
Look at the balls on this guy. My way will never get you compromised. It's my mentor right there.
Yeah, he's implying that you can compromise the armor of God. Come on now. You can do better than that.
That's the confidence you need.
Demon bag.
No, Brian did have Kiwi walking on water one time. I remember.
My way will never get you compromised.
Oh, yes, it will.
Your way
no, it won't.
opens the door to compromise in order to exercise your way.
It doesn't. It doesn't. What claim am I making?
You're trying to paraphrase their anti-flat Earth claim back to them so they understand it within their ball rhetoric, with their ball begging the question intact, so that you can have the discussion. I mean, you're like opening the snake pit and going, "I'm not compromised."
No, I'm not. You didn't understand what I was saying. No, I'm not. I'm taking the conversation away completely. I'm telling them exactly what the official stance is on it, and I'm telling them that's my stance. That it's an optical phenomenon. That's my stance, and that's the official stance. And that's why they got nothing. Every time I've done it, they've had to either disappear or red herring. They got nothing. This is trying to test it.
Why were you explaining it again, Brian? What was it? What was the purpose of you explaining it precisely, pray tell?
Explaining it, I was trying to tell you about it.
For what purpose exactly?
Because when we're asked about explain a sunset on a flat Earth, I just say, how do you explain a sunset then if the Earth is flat? I just tell them the official explanation, and I go with that. So they have nothing. What are they going to do? Argue against their own position that they didn't know they had? They didn't even know the official explanation that I gave it to them. And now they can't argue with.
I agree with you,
They can't
Brian.
argue with me.
A lot of people turn to the flat Earth because it makes more sense. The explanations make more sense on a flat Earth.
Didn't we just go over explanations?
Oh, yeah. I'm kidding. I've run into people where they literally become an expert in something that I just told them about and they never knew about. And then I told them about it, and then they become the expert on it right after I told them about it to tell me how I'm wrong.
Like celestial navigation, remember? They all became experts at celestial navigation. They all became...
Yeah, but while that was going on, they forget that they broadcast a lot of their own discussions. And some of their discussions involved them saying to each other, tapping each other metaphorically on the shoulder and going, "Shh, don't mention 90 when you're discussing this stuff that you don't understand. 90's bad."
Right, but the explanations, like, where are the globe explanations? I've yet to hear one. That's my point.
There are none. It's all roads lead to flat Earth. My goodness, we got NASA saying it.
Right. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you again to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams. Hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!